This is Rogers TV Ottawa.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, March 29th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -4, feels like -13, -2 in Smiths Falls, and feels like -7. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Provincial government lowering the minimum age to get vaccinated against COVID-19 in regions that do include Smiths Falls, Ottawa, and Kingston. With that, residents in Ottawa will soon be able to receive their shot through pharmacies. With that story, here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
The province has moved the minimum age to 70 in multiple regions across Ontario. This includes Ottawa Public Health, Leeds Grenville Lanark District Health Unit, and Kingston Frontenac, and Lennox and Addington Public Health. The previous minimum was 75 years old in most regions. According to a tweet from Nepean MPP Lisa MacLeod, upon arrival of federal Astrazeneca supply, Ottawa will be brought online to deliver shots through pharmacies. She says the capital will be marked as a hot zone for phase 2 of the rollout, as supply will be larger than per capita by then. The MPP adds 4,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine are also set to arrive in Ottawa this week to help boost the per-person supply. Over 110,000 shots of vaccine have been administered so far in the city. The COVID-19 incidence rate in the capital is also on the rise. OPH says currently 73.1 per 100,000 people are testing positive for the virus in the city, placing us firmly in the province's red control status. Alex Gouge, City News.
COVID-19 likely began with transmission between a human and bat through another animal. That is the finding of a soon World Health Organization, along with China. Speculation that COVID-19 was leaked from a Chinese lab is largely dismissed in this report. The study also offers little new insight into exactly how the virus began to spread around the world. And now your forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll start to clear and the wind will settle down. The high 5 degrees today. Tonight, mainly clear, -3, and tomorrow milder with a south wind, sun and cloud, and up to 16 degrees tomorrow. For today, the high 5.
And right now in Ottawa, -4, feeling like -13. In Smiths Falls, -2. It does feel like -7. They're getting very close to moving the massive container ship that has been stuck sideways for nearly a week in the Suez Canal. We get the latest from our senior business editor, Mike Epple.
We're looking at the Ever Given, that massive container ship, 80% refloated, according to engineers on the scene, and they're going to try to see if they can move that ship in the right direction using big tugboats and such, and then get the engines restarted. It's in a single lane of the Suez, so even when the Ever Given is steered in the right direction, they still have to get it out of the way for other ships, an estimated 450 either end of that canal to get through. And that is reportedly taking up about $9 billion of global trade each and every day. At the Business Center, I'm Mike Epple.
City News time at 9:03. The search for a missing 3-year-old boy continues in South Frontenac. 3-year-old Jude Layton was last seen yesterday morning around 11 in the Canoe Lake Road area. Ground search was boosted around 3 in the afternoon as more resources were sent into the area, including an OPP chopper, drones, police dogs, and specially trained searchers. Right now, police are asking civilian volunteer searchers not to go to the area. The last update we had from police came in at about 9 o'clock last night. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
When the headlines say X,
he's got the Y.
it's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
According to the Bloomberg Vaccine Tracker, both the United States and the United Kingdom are on track to achieve herd immunity from COVID-19 by the end of July because of the success of their vaccination programs. By the end of July. In Canada, a lot of 90-year-olds and 80-year-olds will just be getting their second doses of vaccine by the end of July. Good morning. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News. We are flat out until noon on the Rob Snow Show today. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson among our guests. The mayor coming up right after the 9:30 news. Many questions for Jim Watson with people over the age of 70 now able to book vaccination appointments. The vaccine rollout soon to be expanded to local pharmacies. But there have also been complaints that Ottawa hasn't been getting its fair share of vaccine doses. And in terms of so-called vaccine equity, because of the size of the city of Ottawa, I mean, geographically, the size of Ottawa, massive rural area, what sort of special challenges does that present for the local on-the-ground immunization program? We'll get into all of that. And I think one of the big questions has to be, and it's a question I'll put to you this morning, good listeners, what's happening with the daily case counts? And how would the mayor feel if the provincial government came along and said, sorry, Ottawa, you're back in the gray zone. You're joining Toronto and Peel, and you're going back into the gray zone. What would you think of that? We were in the orange zone. They put us back into the red zone. What if we fall back into the gray zone? Because when you look at the case counts recently, it's not out of the question. We could be headed right back into the gray zone. I wonder what the mayor would think of that. Well, we'll find out. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson, 9:30 this morning here on the Rob Snow Show. Case counts. And all the other data points that are worth looking at. Some of the worrying trends. Dr. Doug Manuel from the University of Ottawa on our program. Again, he's an expert in all of this. I was looking at some of the numbers this morning, kind of looking in the rearview mirror, comparing it to where we are now. I have to tell you, the trend doesn't fill you with the warm and fuzzies. And we'll have a new set of case count numbers out in about an hour from now. More than 2,400 cases, 2,400 cases across Ontario yesterday. 2,400 cases across Ontario yesterday. And more here locally than more than 120 cases in Ottawa yesterday. 126, I believe the number was yesterday. In both cases, for both the Ontario numbers and the Ottawa numbers, the number of daily cases is up 130% in a month. 130% increase in a month. And if things keep going the way they're going, we might soon, and I mean by soon, I mean by the end of the week, we could be looking at case numbers in this province, in this city, that we haven't seen since all the fuss about the Christmas rush and gatherings over the Christmas holidays. It will be like we've come full circle in just 3 months. Case counts up 130% in a month, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, we had the stay-at-home order put into effect. That stay-at-home order was lifted across many parts of the province in the middle of February. And it would appear that ever since that happened, ever since the stay-at-home order ended, the numbers have, well, they've moved up. They've moved in only one direction, up. So look, I have to ask you. I hate to ask you because, gosh, I feel like I've asked you this 100 times before. But if so be it. If this is 101st time, so be it. I have to ask you again, and I'll ask Dr. Doug Manuel as well. I want to ask you again, and I hate to sound like a broken record. I know it's been more than a year of this, but it is a decision that we may have to confront soon enough, just given the state of COVID across Ontario and the state of COVID here in Ottawa. If things get much worse, lockdown. I'm going through Twitter this morning. I'm reading through the news this morning. Lockdown may be coming. Maybe we need another lockdown. Health expert says we need another lockdown. Member of the Premier's vaccination task force says we need another lockdown. Dr. Isaac Bogosh, maybe we should look at another lockdown. Last time Dr. Manuel was on, he was suggesting we may need more restrictive measures. What would you think? Another lockdown? What if we have to go into the gray zone? That most restrictive color scheme of them all. Lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. Third wave, another lockdown. What would you think? What would you think? Would you be okay with that? Or would you say no to any more lockdowns? This one, we should ride it out. I don't know what the right answer is. I'm leaving it up to you. But I could see people making the case, let's ride it out. We have the vaccine now. And yeah, it would be nice if we were further along than we are. But this isn't the situation that we faced a year ago. It's not spring 2020, it's spring 2021. Vaccines are no longer a dream, a fantasy, a would be nice to have. We have them now. And a lot of vulnerable people, the frail elderly, residents in long-term care, people with chronic health conditions, they've had at least one shot. In long-term care, most of them have had at least 2 shots if they live in long-term care. So no, we don't need the same kind of lockdown that we've had in the past. Let's ride it out. We should be able to ride it out. Let's ride this thing out. We're closed up pretty tight as it is. I can see people making that case. I really can. Again, I don't know what the answer is. That's why we bring the experts on. Okay? I didn't go to medical school. But there are health officials, and I'm telling you, they're worried. Okay? And they're talking about lockdowns again. We need another lockdown to limit the spread of COVID-19. And we've seen the Ford government, what it said it wouldn't hesitate to slam on the emergency brake if case counts spiked higher, and we've seen it. Other regions moved into more restrictive zones, like our friends in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. Just joined us this morning in the red zone. But for how long? Maybe we're all headed to the gray zone. So look, we do the talkback hour. We do it every morning between 10 and 11 o'clock. We set that hour aside for your opinions, okay? We take your phone calls at 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. We listen to your opinions, and we'll do that again this morning. Here we go. Third wave. Case counts up 130% in a month. Here come the calls again. Lockdown. Third wave, lockdown. What do you think? Yes? One of the few tools that we have to limit the spread of COVID-19, or no, it's different this time because we have vaccines. No, we don't need to lock things down the way we locked things down before. What do you think? What do you think? That's where we start this Monday morning, March 29th, on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Where it was going to go, but then the renovation market took off like wildfire. And for us, yes, we're very lucky, very fortunate that we were able to turn things around. I think a lot of it had to do with our internet presence as well, that I was, kept working on over years, and then it kind of took off. So that was very positive. But now, no, people are staying at home. We're renovating different markets, whether it's a kitchen or a backyard or your fireplace. They want to cozy things up. So yes, things are extremely busy right now. Right now it's fireplaces, and I think with the snowbirds, a lot of those clients have existing wood fireplaces, so they're looking at inserts. So they want to convert the wood to gas. They don't want to deal with the wood part of it, but they want it clean and easy and efficient, and that's been a major increase in our business. The cottage and chalet market has really increased, absolutely. We see that people, that's their staycation now, is either the backyard or their cottage with their close bubble of family. So there's no question that we've seen a big increase in that area as well. I've seen a change in the backyard because now the staycation, from my past being in the pool business, one of our great clients was in the other day and he's in the pool business. He's booking for 2022. For in-ground pools, okay? So I think what's happened now is that's brought everybody back home, and I think maybe down the road, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're still gonna see people spending time in their backyards and staying home more. The barbecue area, really, we call it the backyard. So you walk out of your house into a backyard, and it kind of looks like that with the fencing and the sky and things like that. So that is just our fun room. It's just, there's a lot of cool gadgets there that has to do with dealing with charcoal and wood pellet barbecues. To go online, you're going to find, you just Google, romantic fireplaces will come up. The one nice thing about our work is that when the Google reviews and the Google pictures are phenomenal. We're uploading stuff every day. I have at least 1,000 jobs, real jobs that you can take a look at, either on the Google pictures on the drive, or if you go to our website at romanticfireplaces.com and click on our work, that's where we used to load lots of them up, but there's lots of pictures there too. But the great thing about that is they're real. There's testimonials there about people talking about our team. And our team here is unique to everybody else. It's two small teams, but these fellas work for me. They're our guys. So when they go into your home, they care as much about your house as you do.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Again, across Ontario, 2,448 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. As of yesterday, we'll see the new number in about an hour from now. In Ottawa, same figure, 126. Both of those numbers an increase in the last month of 130%. 130% increase in COVID cases daily in 1 month. As we welcome back to the Rob Snow Show, Dr. Doug Manuel, epidemiologist, University of Ottawa, member of Ontario's Science Advisory Table. Good morning again.
Good morning, Rob.
130% increase in a month. What do you make of it?
Well, I think we've actually been doing pretty well in February. It's been increasing steadily. I think we were expecting to increase steadily, and it will continue to increase steadily. So I think bit of mix. We've been staying open pretty well, but the cases are going to continue to increase.
Okay. Should we have another lockdown?
It's a good question for Doug Ford.
Okay. But not Doug Manuel, though. Okay.
Well, I don't like to make it. I don't like to make the policy calls. I think the most appropriately made at cabinet. But here's some things to weigh through it. I think it's likely that we're going to have the highest daily case count rate within a few weeks. So at this rate, like you said, 120% per month, that will likely increase over the next month or so, meaning that our vaccination rates aren't high enough yet to really dull that down, and the variants are increasing. And, kind of red is the new orange. We don't have a lot of more control measures that we've seen. So adding those all together, we're going to likely to continue to see an increase, and that will probably bring us into sort of 200 numbers, like 200 per day, in probably about 2 weeks or so. So cases are going to go up. Deaths are probably going to go down. Why
is that? Okay.
Because of vaccination. So our deaths predominantly happen much more often in our older people. Half the deaths are from our folks in long-term care homes early in the pandemic, it was about 80%. So those folks are all vaccinated. Retirement homes are all vaccinated. So the serious illness in the older people, including death, will go down. How much is that going to be replaced by, deaths and hospitalization ICU admissions from the folks that aren't yet immunized in their 50s and 60s? And that's a bit uncertain. Right now, we're projecting to have increased hospitalizations. But I think with some uncertainty, I expect hospitalizations will go up and deaths will probably go down. And, I think where we are province-wide, we're at the highest level of ICU since the pandemic began. We're better here, we're better here in Ottawa, but our numbers are going up, and most likely they're going to continue to go up. The difference, too, will be those folks in hospital are going to be younger than we saw earlier in the pandemic.
And sicker, by the sounds of things.
Sicker. The new variant.
More severe illness.
More severe illness, yeah.
Is that surprising? Because it seemed as though when these variants first emerged, what we were hearing then, I guess, this is the evolution of understanding about these variants, is more contagious, but not necessarily more severe, but now maybe more severe than first thought.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised. I was expecting that the more transmissible would result in less virulent or less severe. That's kind of what the textbook says. But like you said, we are learning as we go. And the first indications came out from UK about higher severity, and a few papers published in our best medical journals and science journals. They've been replicated, and they've been replicated. I don't think we published them yet from the science table, but they've been replicated here in Ontario, and we're seeing higher rates of death, higher rates of hospitalization, higher rates of ICU with the B117, the UK variant.
With an R number, the R number for Ottawa is 1.16. What does that mean?
That means, for each person who has COVID, on average, that they are infecting or transmitting to 1.1 people. So it's sort of a lowish increase, and that's why we've seen this sort of gradual increase over the last 2 months. And that will continue. It's actually been hovering around 1, but just above 1. So we just had this slow increase. Mm-hmm. The challenge is, COVID, everything is exponential. And, who thought that we'd be talking about exponential math and logs a year ago, or a year and a half ago. But,
right.
If you have 10 people, that means that there's going to be 11 new cases. If you have 100 people, that means there's going to be 110 new cases. So that difference between one, the numbers, absolute numbers get larger and larger. And that poses the challenges. That's why we kind of look at these things like lockdowns, because we know eventually it's just going to, the exponential mass just going to overwhelm everything. Even, because the absolute numbers, we go from 200 to 300 to 400. And at some point, the numbers just get too large.
Yeah,
but that's, and the question is the base of the V's, so that the numbers will go up. But as we get vaccinated, that will reduce the R. The variant will increase the R, and the vaccination will reduce the R. The problem is that we're kind of increasing, this is getting mathy, but, we're increasing at a linear rate, and the virus is growing at an exponential rate. So that's where the race gets tricky over the next month or two.
Right. But as long as it's above 1, it's still spreading.
Yeah, increasing.
And new people are still becoming infected. And it's not dying. And it's at a faster rate, and it's not dying out. It needs to be below 1 in order for it to die out. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
And it's because vaccines are not keeping up with spread, particularly probably spread from variants, right?
Yeah, you can kind of imagine if that R is 1.1, that means that, or you have 10 people and 11 people are getting vaccinated. Well, what happens if now in the future one of those 11 people is vaccinated? That's going to, and you reduce transmission. Say you reduce transmission completely, but reduce now we've knocked that down. Now only 10 people will get vaccinated. One person will be protected, so the R will be 1. So as we get more people vaccinated, the goal is to drop that R below 1. And we will get there. It's just a question of when.
Okay.
And will the cases get so high that Doug Ford, that will feel really uncomfortable with and run out of hospital capacity, et cetera.
Right. So there are two other numbers. There's a weekly COVID rate per 100,000. That in Ottawa is at 73, and then there's a percent positivity rate, and that's at 4.6%. Both of those seem to be on the relative high side. What do you think about those metrics?
Yeah,
there?
Well, the weekly rate is just the average of the daily rate, and I usually just talk about the daily rate because I have a hard time dividing by 7. But,
okay, all right, okay, yeah.
But the positivity rate, that's the percent. Like if you test 100 people, if it's 4% and you test 100 people, 4 people will come back with positive. Yeah. And that 4% or about over 4% is higher than it's been since last spring. But, last spring it was very high. We weren't testing very many people, if you remember. We were only testing travelers and healthcare workers. So we were only testing the sickest of the sick. And so the numbers would be quite high. Now, so we're quite high right now. But, here's a scenario. I think that it's likely that that positivity won't go up as quickly as we'd expect soon because people will probably start having their spring allergies, right? So the positivity rate, if you have a lot of people with, say, COVID-like and they're getting tested, that means that you're going to have a lot of people testing negative because they don't have COVID, they have allergies. So that will drop your positivity rate down. So it's a really finicky kind of complex number because it's not, it depends on how many people are being tested, not as well as how much COVID is circulating in your community. But it's been pretty reliable. When it gets up, there's a pretty good sense that COVID's circulating quite a bit. But there's tricky times. We had tricky time in September. We have a lot of allergies and respiratory symptoms when kids go back to school, and those go up in the spring. So we use all these metrics together to give us a sense of what's going on.
Okay. Thank you again, Doctor. Always good to hear from you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa, member of Ontario Science Advisory Table. And over the last year, he's kind of become a regular Monday fixture on the Rob Snow Show. That's Dr. Doug Manuel. Coming up right after the news at 9:30, Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. And following Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson, the former Chief Medical Officer of Health for the City of Ottawa, now the Acting Medical Officer of Health for Renfrew County, Dr. Robert Cushman. All ahead before 10 o'clock on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Good morning. It's Monday, March 29th. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, it's minus 4 degrees. It feels like minus 12. In Smiths Falls, minus 3. It does feel like minus 11 in the wind. Here's what's making news this hour. 70-year-olds in Ottawa and Smiths Falls can now register for their vaccination against COVID-19. The province opening up the window for those eligible by another 5 years, just as of 8 o'clock this morning. Now, the arrival this week of the Astrazeneca vaccines boosting the vaccine supply. The concerns some people have with the AstraZeneca shot may go out the window today as a provincial health minister is scheduled to receive her shot of AstraZeneca. An update on the rollout of vaccines and the lower age restriction coming up in just moments with Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson on the Rob Snow Show. Searchers on the ground and in the air continue the hunt for a missing toddler. 3-year-old Jude Layton was missing since yesterday in South Frontenac around 11 o'clock in the morning. It's been just over 22 hours since the boy was last seen. Now at 3 yesterday afternoon, the initial search was boosted by a chopper, drones, the canine unit, and specialized searchers. We haven't received any word from the OPP as to the progress of that search so far this morning. Ottawa Fire Service rescued a couple of animals over the weekend at a house fire in Stittsville on Friday. A kitten reunited with its family after fire forced them from their home. And on Sunday morning, fire crews also helped to free a horse. It had become stuck in a narrow passage. And word out of the Suez Canal now, the Ever Given is apparently free after being trapped sideways in the canal, stuck on the sand. There is word from the Associated Press that ship has now been freed. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Welcoming back to the Rob Snow Show on City News, Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's a windy day out there.
Yes, it is quite windy. Quite
my
windy.
Timmy's and got a tea and nearly blew myself off the road.
My goodness, yes. I thought the roof was going to come off the house this morning. Quite strong winds. But, this time of year in Ottawa, you can get in all kinds of weather. You can get 21 degrees or you can get 21 centimeters of snow. You just don't know. Right?
That's true. I think tomorrow will be nicer with, I think, up to 16 degrees.
Yeah. Okay. So the vaccine rollout is expanding to ages 70 and up. Generally speaking, Mayor Watson, how would you describe how you're feeling where we are in this vaccination rollout? Are you satisfied? Are you frustrated? How do you think it's going?
A little of both, actually. Satisfied that we're now down to the 70s, ages 70 and above, which is good. It allows thousands and thousands of more people to come and get their vaccines. Today we're starting our rural pop-up clinics in Richmond and Osgood, the 29th to the 31st, West Carleton and Cumberland, the 1st to the 3rd of April, and Greeley and Navan, the 4th to the 6th of April. So we want to get those, as you pointed out earlier in your conversation. We are a large city, and you can't expect everyone to come from Fitzroy Harbor, for instance, into the downtown core. So we've set up these 4 wards with rural pop-ups, so that will take some of the pressure off of the other systems. So there were apparently a few little glitches this morning in terms of logging out of the provincial system, but I'm told those have been corrected now. Okay. And I'm getting lots of reports on social media of people who have booked their parents and grandparents. So, we're slowly but surely making progress, and very pleased that after Keith Egley and I wrote to the Minister of Health, it's been confirmed that we're going to start getting some of our pharmacies with vaccine, which will help as well, because, as you know, we have a lot of pharmacies in Ottawa all over the place.
Yeah. Plus, that would help us, wouldn't it, Mr. Mayor, meet some of the challenges of having a city that's, let's face it, is 2,900 square kilometers, right? So
yeah,
it's very unique for Ottawa, right?
You know, someone, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but someone said there are more Shoppers Drug Marts than Tim Hortons in Ontario. So you know, there are a lot of Shoppers and Rexall and IDAs and so on, and those pharmacists are willing and able to help out. We sent the ministry list of 143 pharmacies that were willing and able to assist. And my understanding is that later this week, we will, I believe on Tuesday, from the federal government get AstraZeneca doses, and we'll get now our fair share on a proportional basis, because as you know, last week I raised the issue of the unfairness that we're population, but we're only getting 5.6% of the doses. So the province has accepted the fact that that should not happen, and we should get our fair share starting this week.
Well, I wonder if is that the most effective measure? For example, take this pharmacy rollout, for example. I took a number of calls from listeners to my program, people from Ottawa who went to Kingston, and got shots at pharmacies. So you have to wonder, well, why are we even having the pharmacy pilot program in Kingston, for example?
Yeah.
There are almost no cases in Kingston, right? So
you raise a very good point on two fronts. First of all, we're taking people from a red zone, Ottawa, and putting them into I think an orange zone, so that is causing some potential risk for the people in Kingston. So that's why, Keith and I sent the letter saying, we, the second largest city in the province, we're in red zone, and we would like very much to be part of the pharmacy rollout, because we've seen how it's worked in other jurisdictions. But, I noticed, for instance, there was a news story in Charlotte Lake. I think they had a wait list in the small little pharmacy there of 6,000 people. Give us the vaccines in, many of our pharmacies here in Ottawa, and we'll avoid people traveling into another area, which is not a good idea, number one. And then secondly, we'll get a lot of people vaccinated geographically around the city, because as you pointed out, we're a large piece of geography. I often show people, I have a map that we made up that shows the cities of Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton all fit within the boundaries of Ottawa, and we're still bigger by 100 square kilometers. So we have a unique geographic situation. That's why we rolled out, starting today, the rural pop-ups, and people can go and book an appointment by calling 691-5505. That's 691-5505, which is Ottawa Public Health. Or if they don't have a pen to write that down, they can go to ottawapublichealth.ca. And the rural ones, we're not going through the provincial system. We're doing it on our own at Ottawa Public Health.
Okay. So let's just drive that home. You don't, for a rural pop-up site, you don't use the Ontario.ca vaccination booking site.
That's correct.
It's totally OPH. Go to the Ottawa Public Health website. You can book it there. You can find the phone number there. So,
and I thank my four rural colleagues, because they pushed for this. Catherine Kitts and as well as Eli El Shantiri and Scott Moffat and George DeRuse, because they recognize geography is a challenge, and if we can get these people vaccinated, this is 75 and over for the rurals, and the rest of the sites, which is, of course, the Eva James Centre in Canada, the Nepean Sportsplex, the Ruddy Family Y in Orleans, those are now 70 and over.
Okay. The City of Ottawa runs 4 long-term care homes, right?
That's correct.
4 long-term care homes. All the residents have been vaccinated, right?
Yeah.
Just about, right?
Yeah,
just about,
we're
pretty
actually
much?
the first big city in Ontario to get all of our long-term care homes vaccinated, their first jab and their second jab.
Right.
And last week we finished the second doses at all retirement homes.
Okay. What about the staff? How's it going with vaccinating the staff there? How does that work?
Well, they actually go to the civic hospital. They make an appointment through the civic hospital system to get vaccinated. I haven't seen the latest numbers. It appeared to me last week that they were lower than I would like to see them. I think in the 50s or 60s. I stand to be corrected on that. But we'd like to obviously see as many of those staff members vaccinated as possible, because it obviously helps in these long-term care settings. But the priority for us, Rob, was to get the residents.
I know.
And we got those done relatively quickly.
Well, what do you think, Mr. Mayor, about the potential for having to compel some of these employees to get vaccinated? If they're going to be caring for frail elderly, they're employed by the city of Ottawa, right? So,
yeah, that's a good question. I don't really have a good answer for you, because ultimately it would be the direction from the Ministry of Long-Term Care that would have to implement that. We wouldn't have the legal authority to do that. And I know Minister Fullerton has indicated at this point they're not looking at doing that.
Yeah.
There are obviously, legal issues and so on of whether you can force people to do what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
But, at least, the very least, we had to make sure that the residents themselves were inoculated, and that's been done. And we obviously, are concerned about those people who have not been done. So we have the ability to, obviously, as new people move into residences, we have the ability to help get them vaccinated as well. Because initially, we couldn't move one of the, I think it was the Moderna, because of concerns with the temperature and so on. Now we actually can move it, so that's why we're able to go into retirement homes, for instance, relatively quickly.
Any idea when you'll be vaccinated?
Well, probably not for, a couple months or so.
Okay.
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
If you go too early, you're taking up a dose. If you don't go, are you afraid of the Astrazeneca?
You have no hesitancy or anything like that?
Not at all. No, I have full confidence in Dr. Etches and her advice and the teams in the province. And when it's my turn, I'll line up just as Jean Chrétien and Joe Clark did last
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Last week.
Isn't that cool?
Nice,
very cool. Yeah. Former prime ministers, they just kind of show up. Right. It's unbelievable.
That's what I think makes our country, pretty special. They just come in, they get their appointment. They weren't brought to the front of the line or anything like that. And
I remember my former City Hall reporter, a name Dan Polanin.
Yes, professor.
Who's a professor at Algonquin College now, came back into our newsroom one time and said, I was just at Harvey's and Jean Chrétien was there having a hamburger at the Harvey's on Bronson Avenue. So that's just the way things go sometimes. Now, I have to ask you, given the case counts, we're going in the wrong direction here in this city, Mr. Mayor. 126 cases. It's up substantially over the last month. We've already gone from orange to red. What would be your reaction if the province came along and said, sorry, Ottawa, your health zone, you've got to go back into gray? What would you think, Mr.
I'd obviously be disappointed because obviously gray has significant impacts on people's mobility and businesses and so on, but I would accept it. Just as I've said all along, if Dr. Etches says that we have to move into a different category, I'll be there to back her up on that. And, that's one of the reasons why, Rob, we announced last week a series of assists to the business community, because above and beyond people's physical health with the disease or with the pandemic, there's also the mental health challenges of people who are laid off, brought back, businesses open, businesses close. And we're bringing forward a proposal later this month to create a separate small business tax category that would see us reduce small business taxes by about 10% to give them a fighting chance, because they've as you know, you go down any street in Ottawa, there are lots of for lease signs and for sale signs on businesses. So hopefully this is a small gesture. We don't have, as you know, a lot of tools in our toolkit, but this is one that we have. Also helping to reduce rent on facilities to try to help the arts community once we get into a period where we can start to have some kind of gathering, hopefully late summer, early fall.
Yeah, so you're looking at cutting property taxes for small business by 10%. How would you've always said, Mr. Mayor, no new money, right? You want something out, you want something in, you got to take something out. Okay, so here you're taking something out. That means you got to put something in. So what are you going to do to offset that?
Well, we're going to go to the large corporate towers, the big box, Walmarts, the Costco's, who've done very well, quite frankly, using the bit of a loophole that they sell groceries, they stay open and sell everything else to the disadvantage of small businesses. So they'll see a small increase of 0.68% on average, about $700 in a tax bill of $102,000 for large corporate entities and big box stores, and that allows us to give a greater cut to the small business community who have really hurt, the restaurants and the gyms and the salons and so on, and to their employees, So with the provincial education tax cut, it'd be about, for the average small business, about a $1,500 savings. And then we're waiving, for instance, the patio fees to help with the capacity issues at restaurants. And I met a restaurateur on Preston Street the other day. He said the patio fare freeze or elimination would save him about $8,000 for his season. So, it's a significant savings. It allows him to maybe hire back one or two more people to help out on the patio.
How many city employees are working from home these days?
We have about a third of our workforce working from home.
Okay.
2/3, as you know, we're very labor intense. So a lot of our employees, police, paramedics, firefighters, road crews, water filtration plant, and so on, are still working at their jobs because they have to. You can't plow a street working from home. So it's about a third. And part of our plan is to come back in the fall with a gradual return of our employees back to a work environment. It may not be their old workplace. If they happen to live in perhaps Orleans, maybe they can work out of the old Cumberland Town Hall, for instance, so that they're closer to home. But we need to encourage the federal government, when it's safe, to get employees back for the benefit of the vibrancy and economic stability of our local businesses downtown, as well as our transit system.
Okay. I thank you for your time this morning, Jim Watson. Always a pleasure to have you on our show, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Take care, Rob.
Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. Dr. Robert Cushman coming up next, Acting Medical Officer of Health for Renfrew County, on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, is got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong products, you didn't price your items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain were I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying. And then I shut my business down for, I think, a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries. Started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Carp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. We've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours and hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting. And anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not. But more so now, because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff. And again, their situations and their circumstances change.
pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
And 1310 AM.
All right, let's get an update on what's happening as far as the vaccination rollout and the situation with COVID-19 from the Acting Medical Officer of Health for Renfrew County. Dr. Robert Cushman is back with us on City News. Good morning, Dr. Cushman.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's very nice to hear from you again this morning. Where are you with your vaccination rollout? You've been going through fits and starts here at times.
Yeah, as you've heard, there's a little disconnect with what comes out of Toronto because there are hotspots, the urban areas, and even there's a asymmetry between what we're trying to do and where Ottawa's at, just in terms of vaccine supply. Because we got, basically we're getting fewer vaccines and also at a later date. But the good news is that we have now vaccinated 75% of folks over 80 in Renfrew County and District. And I think Ontario's under 60%. So we're very proud of that. And as of the last half hour, we sent out a media release which says that as of today, those who were born in 1946 or earlier, in other words, the group between 75 and from 75 on up to 80 and beyond, that they can book. So we're catching up. We're not at the 70-plus 5-year cohort yet, but we're moving along. And I think I just got some information minutes ago, and we've put 14,000 vaccines into arms so far.
And how do you feel about the pace right now, Dr. Cushman?
Well, I mean, clearly there's enormous public expectations and there's a lot of impatience on the part of everybody, but we know these vaccines are how would I say, they're very precious.
Yes.
And there's a limited supply and there's almost a global trade war going on with these vaccines. And also we understand that they need to go where they're most needed. I mean, I'm not sure that I can convince everybody in Renfrew County of that, but if you look at the devastation, the deaths in Ottawa, Toronto, Peel, I mean, we've had 4 deaths in Renfrew County since this started. So we've done very well. Our numbers have been quite good. Unfortunately, I'm concerned right now. Our numbers are I wouldn't even say inching up. They're almost surging up, and we had we've now had 3 variants in Renfrew County and District since late last week.
And what do you think is causing that?
This is just a reflection of what's going on elsewhere. The vaccine, the virus is mutated. We know these variants are more dangerous. We've actually seen in one of these variants, I think we had 7 or 8 contacts that tested positive very quickly. So we're scurrying to catch up with that and to try and contain it. So, I mean, this is sort of what's going on worldwide and in the cities in Ontario and in our neighboring city of Ottawa. So it's, I always say whatever's happening there is going to come to Renfrew County and District between a week and in a week or 2 weeks. And sure enough, it's here.
Okay. But you're kind of one sort of cohort behind where Ottawa is. And you don't sound terribly upset about that.
Well,
you don't have vaccine envy or anything, I guess.
No, not at all. Because, I mean, I'm a physician and you go where there are problems. Right. I mean, Ottawa actually takes our sickest patients. I think half of our, not half, roughly, we have maybe a third of our patients who are very, very sick are in Ottawa hospitals. So there's sort of a, quid pro quo here. Everyone pulls their oar to their best of their ability. I mean, as I said, it's difficult to message in the population when people are reading about it and they're listening on the news and they see that it's a green light for those over 70, and it's not a green light. We had to issue a hold last week. We figure, I think the government said 70 or 75 plus a week ago Friday, so that kind of fits. We're about 10 days behind. But people have to be realistic, and as I said, we're very proud that we've done 75% of people over 80. I mean, we are. I mean, that's on the podium for a medal compared to other health units. Excellent. And when you think about these are the people most at risk, I mean, it's I can pump my chest. We can be proud of what we're doing. I'm very proud of our vaccination teams. They get vaccines in arms within 3-4 days after they're delivered by the province. and they've been giving them to the right. They've been immunizing the right people, pretty much. I mean, we've had a few issues with, again, with Toronto saying that this group or that group should go to the front of the line, but we sort of. We've managed to get on with it. We managed to do a good job, and we will continue to do so.
Yeah. It's very interesting you saying that the sickest COVID patients come to Ottawa for treatment. I had Dr. Palmer Emiliotis from the Eastern Ontario Health Unit on with me last week. He mentioned the exact same thing. The sickest people, for example, from Oxbury or Cornwall or what have you from his unit, they end up in Ottawa as well. So it shows you kind of like the regional nature of the Ottawa hospital, for example.
Right. And you may remember I was actually the CEO of the LIN back in the early days, the regional organization, the regional authority. And it was very, that's the way it is. I mean, the tertiary care and the university centers are in Ottawa. And I can't, countless patients come to Ottawa for treatment. And what we've done actually even for ambulatory care, what we've done over the years is actually there's been a real effort in Renfrew County to have physicians from Ottawa come up there, physicians from CHEO and the Ottawa Hospital. So we're all part of the same mix. And I think the other thing here is that this is very much an urban disease. And luckily in Renfrew County, we have a vast geography and a small population. So that's another thing that helps us. And as I've said time and time again, I think Renfrew County and district people have done their level best. They've really taken this to heart. If you look at the amount of testing we've done in the past, if you look at how they've respected the public health guidelines, they've done a great job. I mean, there is a certain small percentage that need to pull their socks up, but by and large, the vast majority of people are doing a good job.
Okay. You're in the yellow zone right now? Is that right?
We are, and
you're confident you'll be able to stay there, doctor?
No, I'm very worried with these variants and what's happening in the rest of Ontario. As I said earlier, we're about a week to 2 weeks behind. Unfortunately, I don't have this week's numbers available right in front of me. They usually come in about noon today. But I think we're probably turning orange.
Turning orange. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But for the most part, it sounds like a pretty positive story out of Renfrew County on this Monday morning, Doctor.
I think so. I mean, we've had a lot of cases toward the end of last week, and we had the arrival of the variants. But from the vaccine perspective, certainly we're doing very well with what we have, and in the meantime, people just have to realize that we want to get as many individuals protected as possible, and we want to gradually build herd immunity. But in the meantime, I would say at least the next 100 days, it's the public health measures, the distancing, the masking, the hand washing, not letting down your guard when you're having social time at work. And key is keeping your social group to a bare minimum. We've seen too many parties and too much trouble.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Cushman.
My pleasure. Have a
nice
good day.
To hear from you, too. Dr. Robert Cushman, Acting Medical Officer of Health for Renfrew County. Talkback Hour is coming up right after the 10 o'clock news. Rising case counts, variants of concern, the trend with cases moving in the wrong direction. We'll get a new set of numbers. What if we went back into the gray zone? What if we entered the gray zone? What if there was another lockdown? What would be your reaction to that? 750-1310 after the news on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, March 29th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -4. It feels like -12 and -3 in Smiths Falls, feeling like -11 in the wind. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. East Region OPP issuing a statement just moments ago concerning the missing 3-year-old boy. Jude Layton was last seen around 11 yesterday morning in the Canoe Lake Road area of South Frontenac. Police say they have trained personnel on the scene. Right now, they are not seeking any assistance from volunteer searchers as that search does continue. On the ground, searchers are being aided by a chopper, drones, and the K9 unit as well. Ottawans 70 years and up can now book their COVID-19 vaccination appointment for mass vaccination clinics. But those who are 75 plus living in the city's 4 urban wards will be able to get their jab through a series of pop-ups in their neck of the woods. Pop-up clinics in Richmond and Osgood running until Wednesday. West Carleton and Cumberland's clinics will run April 1st to 3rd. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson tells the Rob Snow Show the benefits of these clinics.
We are a large city, and you can't expect everyone to come from Fitzroy Harbor, for instance, into the downtown core. So we've set up these 4 wards with rural pop-ups, so that will take some of the pressure off of the other systems.
Now, he does add that appointments for the pop-ups can be booked through the special Ottawa Public Health phone number, not the provincial portal. You can go to the City of Ottawa website for all the details about those pop-up sites. City News Time, 10:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll start to clear and the wind will settle down. The high 5 degrees today. Tonight, mainly clear, -3, and tomorrow milder with a south wind, sun and cloud, and up to 16 degrees tomorrow. For today, the high 5.
And right now, feeling colder in the wind, but it's -3 degrees in Smiths Falls. It's -4 degrees in Ottawa. A military investigation has wrapped up into the Snowbird Crash last year in BC, which killed 1 person and injured another. It calls for better training to prevent a similar tragic accident. In May of last year, a small bird was caught in the engine of one of the Snowbird jets flying in Kamloops, resulted in a compressor stall and a loss of thrust. The investigation report says the pilot, Captain Richard McDougall, tried to climb and turn back toward the airport. When it became apparent a return would not be possible, he and his passenger, Captain Jen Casey, ejected from the aircraft at low altitude. Since they were so close to the ground, there wasn't enough time for their parachutes to function properly. Captain Casey, who once worked for our Halifax station, News 95.7, was killed. Captain McDougall was injured. City News Time, 10:04. The huge container ship that had been wedged sideways in the Suez Canal since last Tuesday is now free. Canal service provider Leth Agency says workers were able to refloat the Ever Given with the help of a high tide and a flotilla of tugboats. And the courthouse in downtown Minneapolis has been fortified with concrete barriers, fencing, barbed wire. The start of the former police officer Derek Chauvin's trial is today. Chauvin charged with unintentional second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter in the death of a man last year. That trial is expected to last for at least 1 month. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
With the Talk Back Hour. 3rd wave. Another lockdown? Another lockdown? Or do we ride it out? That's what I want to hear from you. We might even keep score on this one, kind of rapid poll style. Yes or no, 750-1310. What do you think should happen? Okay. If things keep going the way they're going and the case counts keep moving up, do you think there should be another lockdown? You might not even get a say. They might just say, you're locked down, you're locked down. And if that's the case, what would you think of that? Or should we, I'm calling it, let's ride it out. Let's ride it out, okay? Because the situation has changed. There are vaccines now. We didn't have vaccines last year. We didn't have vaccines when all this started last spring, when we had that first lockdown. And besides most residents in long-term care, for example, they've been fully vaccinated. Now many people over the age of 90, many people over the age of 80 here in the city of Ottawa, they've had at least one dose. Be nice if they had 2 doses, but they've had at least 1 dose of vaccine. So no, we don't need another lockdown. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? What do you think? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Gray zone, here we come. Gray zone, here we come. Could be there soon enough. Or no way, no lockdown. That's what I want to know this morning as we begin another Talkback Hour here on The Rob Snow Show. Gosh, wouldn't you like to know what's going on? Why these case counts so high to begin with? Because my worry is, and the reason I'm bringing this up is if these case counts get much worse. I mean, we have a government in Ontario hasn't hesitated to have a lockdown before. I don't know why we would think we wouldn't have a lockdown again. But I could see how someone could make the case, let's just ride it out because we have vaccines now. And let's hope the pace picks up when it comes to the vaccine rollout. I mean, hard questions, I know. Especially after everything we've been through in the last year. And I'm, I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of sick and tired of talking about lockdowns and lives versus livelihoods or lives and livelihoods. I'm sick and tired of asking you this over and over and over again about lockdowns, but I mean, it's out there again this morning. Health experts talking like it's inevitable. We are going to have another lockdown because of these rising case counts. 750-1310, 750-1310. I went back, every single line available right now. I went back, I looked at where we were compared to where we are today when it comes to the number of daily cases. Here we are. We're almost at the end of March. Province reported more than 2,400 cases yesterday, 2,448, the new number out momentarily here. And the number for Ottawa, the number from Ottawa Public Health, was 126. So I wanted to get a better idea of how that compares to where those numbers stood, say a month ago or 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago or 3 months ago. Because, it's easy to get a sense of deja vu. It's kind of like we're doing a round trip here. In a row, the number of cases in Ontario has been above 2,000. If it's above 2,000 again today, it'd be 5 days in a row. Now, on the last day of February, so a month ago, the province of Ontario reported a little more than 1,000 cases, 1,062. Yesterday's number, 2,448. That's an increase in a month of 130%. Okay, the number of daily cases up 130% in a month. And on the local front, in Ottawa, 1 month ago, the city reported 55 cases. Yesterday, the number was 126. That is an increase of 130%. So in the last month, Ottawa's case count has basically been moving in lockstep with the provincial case count. And you could make the case both lines have been moving in the wrong direction, okay? 2 months ago, going back to January 29th, Ontario reported on that day 1,837 cases, but there were stay-at-home orders in effect at the time, remember? And then the cases fell a month later down to a little more than 1,000. But now the daily case count is 33% higher than it was back at the end of January when the stay-at-home order was in effect. And locally, there were 81 cases on the 29th of January when the stay-at-home order was in effect. Yesterday, 126. That's an increase of 55%. Okay. We had stay-at-home orders in effect in Ottawa until the 16th of February. The day the stay-at-home order was lifted in Ottawa, Ottawa only had 31 cases. Yesterday's number, 126. So you could say, since we lifted the stay-at-home order, just so you know how you can play with the numbers, since the stay-at-home order ended in Ottawa, the daily case count is up more than 300%, 306%. Like we've done a round trip and then some. Gone around and around and around. So what do you do about this? Not worry about it? Because we have vaccines now? Or do we lock things down again? Lock things down again. Again. What do you think? Nancy in Canada. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning, Rob.
What should happen here? Another lockdown?
I don't think there should be another lockdown. I think that's just killing every small business available. Every small business, as far as I'm concerned, should have knocked everything off the back shelf and put everything, sanitizers, masks, diapers, everything that you need to stay open. They're killing every small business they can.
Right. Okay.
I think Toronto should stay home and quit coming here to try and buy a house because they can't afford to live where they are.
Do you think there's a lot of that going on?
Oh, totally yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, totally yes. And, I think another lockdown is going to prove nothing except close this city down.
Right, but how do you explain the fact that the cases are up like 130% in the last month?
I think there's something wrong with the number system, quite honestly. I know people that have been, every year senior citizens' homes get locked down for the flu.
Yeah.
People, a couple of weeks ago, I got a newspaper by accident, actually. I got the Citizen.
Yeah.
7 pages of deaths. Now, I got to tell you, I went through every one of them. Not one of them was COVID. 7 pages of deaths. I mean, people are dying, and there's no denying our medical systems kept them alive for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't wish anybody illness, but I just think this is not chasing every person around. Like, if I catch you, you're going to die. The other thing that worries me is the one shot, when it finally becomes available, and should have been available months ago. How long are we going to wait for the second shot?
You lost me there. You mean a one-shot vaccine?
The one shot that we're going to be able to get?
Right, yeah.
How much longer would we have to wait for the second shot? Because the ones who got it 5-6 months ago, how good is that shot now?
Well, yeah, good question. Okay, but no lockdown.
I would say no lockdown.
Yeah, no lockdown.
I don't think it's...
Ride it out, you're
well,
saying.
You know what? I mean, I'm almost ready to, get it and get it over with.
Get it over with.
Well,
okay.
I'm just tired of running
wish that
from it.
upon anybody.
Where do you go?
Still...
You wear the mask, you wash your hands, you sanitize, you do everything that you're supposed to do.
Yes.
And now, if you go into a restaurant, it's okay for me to have been a neighbor who can take me to get my groceries, but I can't sit with them at a lunch counter because I don't live in the same address. That's very hard on somebody who lives alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you loud and clear, Nancy. I hear the frustration in your voice, too.
Thanks.
I think you're a little frustrated. Yeah, I think a lot of us are. Yeah, let's take one more here, and then we'll stop for the first quarter. Matt in Nepean. What do you think, Matt? We have cases that keep going up, Matt, and health experts are saying we may need to have another lockdown. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I guess you have to look at more than just the case counts.
All right, okay.
When we first started this back last March, the reason wasn't that we were trying to necessarily save everybody's life. It was that the hospitals were getting clogged with people with COVID. And the potential collapse of the emergency care system was going to be worse than the virus itself.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is we've locked it down. We got it down to a nice low number there back last summer. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
hospitals were able to manage. Then we let everybody go free, and then the case counts go back up, which is inevitable, just like your gentleman last week was saying, your doctor gentleman was saying that you let everybody out, case counts going to go up. It's inevitable. So that's what we did. Then we locked it back down again. Case counts went down this January and February and March. And then we locked it, when we let it all open again, case counts go up. Now, the difference now, though, as you were saying, is that we have vaccines.
Right.
We have a lot of people that have already been infected, and so they've got some level
We also have, just so you know, Matt, to your point about the hospital situation, and David mentioned this last week, that the Ontario Hospital Association said we can't handle anything more than 150 people in ICU all across Ontario. Okay? Well, right now there are 366 people in ICU all across Ontario, including 11 here in Ottawa. So
exactly. And so once the hospitals get to a point where they deem it impossible to continue on with elective surgeries or do cancer scans or even just do regular care for the people with COVID and other diseases, then it becomes an issue where we have to lock it down. And the problem is there's a lag time. So if we lock it down today, it's going to take 2 weeks before we really see any decrease in the numbers. And so, you have to keep all this in play as you're deciding what to do.
So right now, what would you say? No lockdown.
So if I was going to say right now, because really very few of us have been vaccinated,
right?
And because the count at the hospitals in care is still very high, I would say, we'd have to go into some sort of lockdown. And it would have and I'd prefer a real lockdown, not one of these sort of mediocre lockdowns we've had the last 2 times, but a real lockdown.
Okay. Severe lockdown, strict lockdown, closer to what we did last spring.
Yeah, but it'll only take a month or so. We'd have our numbers would drop, and then by that point, we'd have a month more of vaccines in place.
Okay, thank you. Be right back. Talkback Hour. If it sounds familiar, well, it's because we're talking lockdowns again on the Talkback Hour, the Rob Snow Show on City News.
I'm blessed to be married to someone who is a scientist and spent a lot of time following what was happening over in China ahead of time. So he did give us the heads up that this was coming. Not that we believed him right off the bat, but when it did happen very, very quickly, we were prepared. We had hand sanitizer and we were set up to not close our doors. So we locked the kitchen down at Wellington Street, but we left this kitchen open. We put in protocols immediately. We only allowed our very small crew of 4 or 5 people in at the time. No deliveries were allowed to come in or out of the building without, they just weren't allowed in and out of the building. So we met them at the loading dock and had very strict protocols in place right away. We had masks and hand sanitizer and the whole thing. So we're very lucky from that perspective, and we're able to, learn as we went, as far as doing small, individually packed caterings, the frozen soup program, food for the Ottawa mission. So we didn't have to close the kitchen and then learn how to reopen it. We just were able to modify and shift as we needed to. Because of our partnership with the Ottawa mission, we were able to very quickly help support them. They were able to send us some product and some supplies, so it wasn't a burden on our business, and we were able to supply the staffing and the packaging to help produce that when they needed it the most. And we produced about 1,400 to complement their meals, and we started our soup program right away. We realized very quickly that there was a need in the community to get together and all work together, not only to support local, but also just to support all the people that were suddenly in a position of, being locked down and not being able to get out. So by starting that soup program, our community, our clients got online and started making donations for the soups, and we were able to produce the soups and get them back out to people that needed it. We're right now currently making 150 liters of soup per week, but we've made, I would say, 5,000 or 6,000, easily since the pandemic. Probably more. I'd have to do the math, but lots. I think everybody in the city has to be very aware of how blessed we were to have great weather this summer and people were able to get out and about, and that's going to shift. So we do have to be much more aware of who our most vulnerable is, and I really think we have to work together as groups. There are so many organizations in the city that are doing something and contributing and working together, and I think it doesn't matter who. but see what you can do to just step up and help them, whatever it is, whether it's driving or delivering food, or someone has extra zucchini in their garden, or if they can afford to donate some money to any of these organizations. I just think we all have to work together. We're smarter and wiser than we were the first time.
Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Back in late December, on the 30th of December, the province reported it was a record-breaking at the time. It only went up from there. We had 2,900 cases that day. Yesterday, the number was more than 2,400. This morning's number is 2,049, so a substantial drop. Fewer tests, so 29,000 tests. But the province-wide positivity rate is 6.1%, which is on the high side. And the number of people in ICU now, the number quoted in the paper this morning, 366. The number as of this morning, according to the Ontario Hospital Association, is more than 400. So that's a disturbing trend, more than 400, okay? But then stay-at-home orders were brought in, and the province managed to knock, a daily case count of 2,000, 3,000 a day down to about 1,000 a day by the end of February. But now, here we are at the end of March, and we've gone 5 straight days with the case count above 2,000, and health officials are talking again as loud as ever about the need for another lockdown. Need for another lockdown. Where are you on the need for another lockdown? 750-1310. Manny. Good morning, Manny.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Manny.
Good. No lockdown, of course.
Okay.
I keep saying this. I'd rather talk about what's very important, not the number of cases. We know that the cases are now in the 20-year-olds, but talk to what we started was the number of deaths. Ontario, I checked COVID deaths, and they're broadly described. They have been averaging about 10 per day for the last 20 days. Ontario loses 330 citizens each day from all causes, and mostly end of life. And we're losing 10 from COVID. I mean, and those 10, we know statistically, are people that are over 70.
Yeah, it was 10 today, 10 reported today for the last 24 hours. Yesterday it was 19 province-wide.
Right.
And in Ottawa, for the number for yesterday was 0.
Right. And on average in Ontario for the last 25 days, I checked it, I think 21 days, 10 per day. We're losing 330 people, not of COVID, per day. We're losing 10 of COVID per day. Of those 10 that we're losing, statistically, they're over 70 with 3 or 4 comorbidities. And of the 330 that we're losing per day in Ontario, probably the vast majority, obviously there's accidents and terrible things in cancer, but the vast majority is end of life as well with 3 or 4 comorbidities. So tell me how it makes sense when of the 330, let's say maybe 250 are people dying at end-of-life illnesses, and we have another 10 dying of end-of-life illnesses. How does it make sense a lockdown now? We have vaccinated the very old, or at least about 70, 80%. So that's why the death count has dropped from March last year from 80 or 70 per day to 10 per day. How do we lock down?
All right. No lockdown. Gotcha, Manny. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. I like the way he formulated his argument there. Downtown James.
Oh, morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi there.
I would say no lockdown, but I mean, we need to be a little more nuanced. And if particularly in Ottawa, we need to find out where the cases are coming from and shut those particular things down. Like whether it's adult hockey and there's too much going out for beers afterwards, or so we need to not broad brush things, but keep on doing some targeted shutdowns as appropriate. Basically, I think these new variants, the UK and particularly the Brazil and South Africa, they are basically what we thought the Wuhan variant was last year. They're much more contagious. They actually are quite contagious, and are affecting younger people, sending them to ICUs, etc. So what we thought was happening last spring actually didn't happen. The Wuhan, I call it the Wuhan variant, but people don't want to use that, was not nearly as bad as we thought it was. But these new variants are kind of what we were expecting last year. So I think they should be. I mean, the other thing too is we don't need a broad brush across the province. I mean, if there's 400 in ICU in Ontario, but 11 for 7% of the population, like by population, we should have 30 or 40 in Ottawa, but we have 11. So, I mean, we need to look at but the average age is going down for the people in the ICU, which is quite concerning. So, and we also need to think that, pardon?
No, I didn't say anything, James. I'm listening. Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing, too, is we need to look at the mental health issues of lockdowns.
Sure.
I know that CHEO has, I believe, lately they've had 30% of their admissions have been mental health issues, whether eating disorders or suicide attempts or issues like that. That is way out of whack from what they normally are receiving. So, but I think, I'm very, very concerned about the new variants. I'm very, very concerned that some people will think that grandma that had the shot last week, one shot 7 days ago, we can go visit her on Easter Sunday inside their house. So I am very, very concerned about the new variants, but I don't think we need broad brush province-wide lockdowns.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, James. Excellent. Yep. 132 cases for Ottawa today. All the latest news on the Ottawa COVID situation, the Ontario situation coming up at 10:30. It's halftime on the Talkback Hour and the Rob Snow Show here on City News.
Local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, March 29th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, a -3, but feeling colder in the wind. And here's what's making news this hour. 4 rural areas in Ottawa will have pop-up vaccination clinics this week at 6 different locations. 2 of them opened this morning in Richmond and Osgood. They will run until Wednesday. West Carleton and Cumberland clinics will run from Wednesday to Friday. Greeley and Navan will have clinics Sunday to Tuesday. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson says those 70 and older now are able to book their vaccinations. It's much easier for people to attend a pop-up site in the area they live in rather than travel into the urban area for their shot. Ontario reporting another 2,094 cases of COVID-19 from almost 39,500 tests. Locally, 132 new cases in Ottawa, 37 in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, 18 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 5 more cases today in Renfrew. 618 of these new cases are in Toronto. There are 368 in Peel and 277 in York. The province is also reporting 10 more deaths from COVID-19. Provincial police have identified the victim in the murder investigation in Hawkesbury at the District General Hospital. The OPP charging Dr. Brian Nadler with first-degree murder after a number of suspicious deaths. He is facing 1 count of first-degree murder, the victim identified as Albert Poindexter. The 89-year-old is from Pointe Claire, Quebec. The investigation is ongoing. The huge container ship that has been wedged sideways in the Suez Canal is now free. Canal service provider says workers were able to refloat the Ever Given with the help of a high tide and a flotilla of tugboats. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Third wave, another lockdown. Some people calling for another lockdown. One of our callers this morning here on the Talkback Hour said, and not one of these phony lockdowns that we've had already. The lockdowns of half measures go all the way and have a real lockdown. Is that where you are? Or do you ride it out? With rising case counts, variants of concern, what do you think should happen? Case counts keep moving up. Should there be another lockdown, go into the gray zone, or do we ride it out because the situation has changed? We have vaccines now. Okay, we didn't have those last spring when we had the first lockdown. Most residents in long-term care fully vaccinated, many over the age of 90, many over the age of 80. They've had at least 1 dose of vaccine. Sure, it'd be nice if they had 2, but they've had at least 1, so we don't need another lockdown. What do you think? 750-1310. 750-1310. It's the second half of the Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour. Armand, good morning. What do you think, Armand?
Good morning. I'm not in favor for lockdown whatsoever.
All right.
We're not. They're not really looking at the emotional part of it. It's really tough.
It is, yeah.
The financial part, it's brutal. So we are causing more issues on that end, which they're not really looking at. They're only, I guess they're concerned about everything else, the variants and all that. But come on, let's look at it the right way. You know, I was out this weekend, and I was walking around out in town, and I felt really down. And I said, "What's going on here?" I just looked at everything, and I said, "I'm not having problems. I've always been okay with it." But I realized that, you know what, it is having an effect on me and other people. The hidden effects. So come on, then if we lock down like they say, 100%, okay, what's that going to create? They're going to let us go again, like they say, next time? Oh, the fourth one's coming around. Oh, the fifth wave. When's the wave going to stop? When's going to stop talking and get serious?
Okay.
And, all right.
Still, case counts, up 130% in a month, Armand.
Yes, I understand that. I understand. We have to live with it.
You have to live with it. Okay.
So we got to figure out what to do with it, and we are doing the best we can, and the rest of the time, got to live with it and say, okay, what are we doing? It's that or go nuts, basically.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, I prefer not to go nuts. Okay, Armand, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to bring this up because health officials are talking again, and I mean, they're talking as loud as ever about a lockdown. But the big difference, of course, between this year and last year is that there are vaccines, right? Last spring, vaccines, they were just a dream, right? Something that most of us could only hope for, that someday there might be a vaccine, let alone a vaccine within a year. So, what I'm hearing for the most part this morning is that lessens the need for some kind of full-blown lockdown. Is that how you would answer the question? At 750-1310, 750-1310. Will in Ottawa. Will.
In Beijing, Shenzhen, all the major cities across China, Chengdu, and all these places across China, they're all working in a time capsule from 2019, 2018. They're totally working in normality over there.
Okay.
Well, then why can't we just go full bore?
Go full bore.
And do the Sweden thing. Just do it and get over this stuff. Because if we don't do it, if we don't pick one particular jurisdiction in North America, Ontario, we can set the pace for the whole world. We can go for it right now. But the problem is that we got a governor, premier, that just is making too much money off of all those decals that his family company is selling.
Okay.
If we got out of this corruption and this dictatorship, as Brian Lilly says, we'd be fine. We'd be normal. We'd go back to normal.
Right.
We'd do herd immunity like the Chinese did. Okay?
Well,
because there's none of this crap going on across continental China.
I'm not, I'm not much for emulating whatever they do in China, sir. To tell you,
well, you're not.
Truth,
that's where it came from. Right. That's the originating place.
Okay.
Why don't we just do what China does?
No lockdown, Will. Gotcha. Gotta let you go. John, Port Hope. What do you think, John?
Well, I just heard your number of 130%.
Yeah.
And the thing is that if we do a little bit of math here, let's say you bought 2 lottery tickets.
Yeah.
Well, you would have doubled your chances. You have 100% more greater chance of winning. However, they're still infinitesimally low. So when you're using a base of, not compare 1,000 versus 2,000, but compare 1,000 over 15 million over 2,000 over 15 million, and then you have a truer number of what the percentages are. So it's a kind of an alarm.
You mean the percentage of becoming infected, you mean?
Well, they're using that to exaggerate the issue.
Okay, well, that was my number, John. That my intent was not to exaggerate. More to illustrate, just to illustrate.
Too. The medical people are saying that as well. And they can't even keep their damn waiting rooms in order, let alone, run an economy. So the thing is that by saying it's 150% increase, you got to look at the baseline. And secondly, if they're talking about 150 ICU cases and they can't handle that in the population of Ontario, maybe we should take a hard look at our medical situation and how many billions of dollars we are spending, and we can't handle 150 cases.
It'll be $69 billion according to the last budget.
Well, you know what? I wish I could spend
for 1 year.
And I don't think we would have had an issue with ICU cases.
Yeah, but they say the system is built in such and such a way that they said when all of this started, we can handle no more than 150 ICU cases at any given time because of COVID. We have to start canceling surgeries and canceling procedures. Right?
Yeah, but it's been over a year.
Yeah. Well, and this morning it's 4. There are 4. Obviously, they've made adjustments. Obviously, they've made adjustments, John, because there are 409 people in ICU across Ontario this morning.
Well, still, it's a drop in the bucket, I think, with all that money we're spending. I think we should take a second look at how we're spending it because there's something wrong in the administration.
Okay.
I don't know what it is.
Okay.
There's something wrong.
Something wrong. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Gloria, Ottawa.
Hello, Rob. I hope you're having a good morning.
So good.
So far, so good.
Yeah, it's a pretty hot topic, this one. Yeah.
It affects all of us.
It sure does, yeah.
No matter your age.
I mean, I'm not saying I want another lockdown. I'm just raising it as an issue because, I read the news like everybody, and I see people like Dr. Bogosh calling, saying, well, we might have to have another lockdown, right?
Well, here's the thing. I'd like to correct somebody.
Okay.
This vaccine does not make you immune to COVID. It decreases your risk of serious illness and death. It does not make you immune. So that's the first untruth we have to straighten out. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is I see it, and I've been in my own little self-isolation for over a year. So, hey, I'm lucky. Lockdown, indoors only. That's where the majority of contamination is happening. If you're outdoors, you have a bigger amount of air for it to dissipate.
Okay.
When it dissipates, it lessens your risk. We're all talking about risk.
Right.
We're not talking about whether or not you're going to go mentally insane because you're not talking to people. Good Lord.
Right.
We're all becoming hermits.
So when you say lockdown indoors only, what do you mean?
Every single...
So, for example, should I be able to have a meal on a restaurant patio as opposed to inside a restaurant dining room, for example?
100% less risk.
100%, okay.
Yep. There's 100% less risk of you picking up a COVID outdoors than there is indoors. Every time you go indoors with strangers, even when I had my vaccine shot, I know I'm not immune. I just lessened the risk of serious illness and death. It doesn't mean I won't get hit by a bus, but it does mean that I've lessened. This is about risk, folks. It's not the flu. It's worse than the flu.
Sure, yeah.
And all those people of all different ages, and believe you me, my family goes three generations anyway, I worry about them because this variant, is changing. And when it changes, it gets stronger. It learns. In fact, it learns faster than we do. It's learning how to get through all the barriers that we're putting up. So for goodness sakes, folks, give up on the meal. For God's sakes, there are people out there who are starving to death. Eat at home.
Okay,
Have a slice of bread. For God's sake.
I got you, Gloria. I got you. Okay, thank you.
All right,
thank you.
Rob.
Thank you. Thank you for
care.
your call. You too. Yeah. Let's take one more here. Joe in Smiths Falls. Joe.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Joe. What do you think? A lot of people are saying we need another lockdown because of the rising case counts. What do you think?
I think that the only thing that anybody should be talking about, I don't think that we should be talking about lockdowns, not statistics, not any of that. The only thing we should be talking about is why do we not have vaccines to vaccinate everybody in Canada? Whose responsibility is that? Let's get everybody vaccinated. Then we talk about lockdowns or social.
Well, hopefully by the time that happens, we won't ever need to talk about lockdowns again once everybody's vaccinated.
Because I think what's happening is somebody messed up and we don't have vaccines like other countries do. And politicians don't want this to explode in their faces. So on the backs of people who work at restaurants, work at gyms, work at the places that get mostly affected by lockdowns, on the backs of those people, the politicians are hedging their elections. And that's not fair.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. In Smiths Falls today. 10:45, final quarter of the Talk Back Hour here on the Rob Snow Show coming up, including your calls to 750-1310. This is City News.
This affected us big time because when, you know how we are seasoned. We have clothes for the spring, clothes for the winter. That time, lots of clothes didn't arrive on time from Europe or from here because some factory shut down. So, and this put us in an odd position. We received not all the merchandise, part of the merchandise. And people, and for us, we have to be careful, especially with the virus going on. Did affect the business, of course, like everybody else. We're not immune, and since the government helped, this did a little bit good for us too, but still affected all the sectors, especially clothing. You can see big corporation affected bad because nobody was thought it's gonna be like this. Earthquake might happen, we joke about it before, things might happen, but this was like a third war, but with a virus. So how to survive, that's the question, and we're doing our best to work with the mall, especially rent in a mall is very high. The government They have certain, let's say, condition, like how many people will be in the mall or in the stores, etc. Yeah, it's a big factor. But of course, if my store has a back doors, or just will be better. It will be much better. At least we can have curbside much easy, because we have to shut down completely, you know. And this left a mark on us, on everybody too. People always ask me, go online. Certain things you can't go online. Let's say T-shirt, certain product people don't know how to fit. But when it comes to clothing, like it's different completely. Let's say I have a customer from 44, but certain suit he might take 42, certain suit he might take 46. So, and how could, I mean, suit is not gonna fit the same. And I see people come back and they show me what they got online and not the same fabric. Mostly young people, but if you really want to shop, you have to go to the store, because everything will be around you. You want to be sure the color look good, the fit will look good, especially when you spend, doesn't matter how much money, whether 300 or 2,000, you know? You have to try, you have to see what's going on. Please don't be shy, contact us. It will be a pleasure for me to take a suit or coat or anything. Like sometimes people have a funeral, they have things, they have a wedding, they don't want to come to the mall. If I get all the information, I will go and meet them at their home or their business offices. I'm gonna start doing that, you know, and this will help the business and help the people. Like they're afraid to come to the mall for time being, or they're too busy at work. They cannot go anywhere at a certain time, so I'm glad to do that.
Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Email the Rob Snow Show at ottawa.citynews.ca. Anne writes, lockdown? Yes, our cases are going up, and up. Our hospitals cannot take it anymore. Our healthcare workers need a break. Some emails about booking vaccine appointments. Bruce emailed at 9:17 this morning. Son able to register 2 of us for the vaccine on the Ontario side. No problems. Booked for April 12th. Mark, 73 in Ottawa, got on the phone 8 o'clock to book a COVID vaccination. Got through in 40 minutes. First jab Sunday, second July 25th. Eric, an hour on the phone line, April 5th and July 26th. My wife is April 7th and July 28th. And they seem pretty happy about it. And Andrea writes, good morning, Rob. As for any big project, developing a plan and a way to evaluate the success of the project is imperative. When planning a lockdown, the goal of the lockdown needs to be clear. Is it to stop the spread, or is it a hospital capacity issue? If it is to stop the spread, we do not live in a bubble. As soon as we open up again, the virus will spread again. People will come in from non-lockdown areas of the provinces, etc. I think the government needs a plan to stop these lockdowns. They need to develop a project evaluation plan to set objectives, and the actions need to reach the goals of the lockdown. In other words, what do they need to achieve, and how will they get there? Thanks for the opportunity to provide the input. No, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to write that email. Kathy in Ottawa. Kathy, good morning.
Good morning, Rob. First-time caller.
Well,
here.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
Of course, my dog's going to start barking, too, at the
That's
same
okay.
time.
That's okay.
Even our pets are tired.
Thank you for, I don't know if it's is it a he, a she, or what?
It's a little girl puppy.
Little girl puppy, okay.
So, anyways,
lockdown puppy, okay.
I think it might be helpful, and I don't think we should have a lockdown, but not yet anyway. I think we need to get more information from a behavioral point of view. So, I've had discussion with many different people over the phone or, during a walk where we're keeping distance. But when I hear the numbers, and after a year of just hearing numbers, the question I have is, where are the majority of cases coming from, and what type of scenarios? So, for example, if we had 120 cases yesterday, would you not agree it would be helpful if they were able to break it down by saying 20% or even the exact number of cases are from close contact in the employment field, from social gatherings. And then in that way, whether it's your employer would review their protocol and make sure that they're keeping up with cleaning or sanitation. And we as human beings would be better able to change our behavior.
Sure.
So, after a year of this, it's impossible for us to always be on high alert all the time for over a year. So I think it would be helpful if we had more information about the behavior that we're doing and where are the majority of cases coming from having to do with that.
You want more information, more data, more specific data about the spread, these kinds of things.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Where are the majority of cases coming from? Is it from close family gatherings? Is it from the workplace?
Crowded workplaces.
Exactly?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, Kathy, thank you. Yep. I was just looking at the COVID-19 dashboard for Ottawa Public Health, and they've totally changed it. I haven't been on that in a while, and it used to be pretty easy to actually kind of find that kind of stuff. They did attempt to break it down, right? David, school settings and workplaces, known travel, and for like a third of the cases, it used to say, no, they don't know, right? They don't know. So anyway, we've taken a few calls off the air, people trying to book appointments, this 70-year-old threshold for Ottawa booking appointments. What are people saying?
Well, I had a few callers earlier in the morning said the process took somewhere between half an hour and an hour, and they got through on the phone line, and that was all honky-dory. But in the past 20 minutes, I've had three different callers now say they've got through on the provincial phone line, and they were told for the Ottawa area, the over 70 newly expanded pool of appointments that they have to work from is fully booked, and you will have to call back another day to get an appointment. They don't have any left for the Ottawa area. So it's possible if you're still on hold with them, you might get through and they might tell you, we don't have any left. You'll have to call back.
All right. Well, we'll have to follow up on that, right? So we'll have to make our own calls on that and see if that's actually true. Trends. Oh, here we go. Time, trends, and exposures for Ottawa. Just bear with me here. I'm looking. No, that's not it. Okay. Back on lockdown watch here. Oh, by the way, I have a current score of 10-1. No to lockdowns, 10. One caller in favor of lockdowns. Where are we going? I think I might have just hung up on somebody. I'm sorry about that. Phyllis in Nepean. Go ahead, Phyllis.
Well, now you have 11 against the lockdown
11.
Idea, Rob.
Okay. Why not, right? Who was that ruined the shutout anyway? Okay. Right.
I just don't think it has proved effective enough. And I completely agree with what your previous caller was saying, is that they don't give us enough information on where these breakouts are. And I understand all of the privacy rules and all the stuff that they have to deal with. But I don't understand why they can't say the majority of these cases are between 20 and 30-year-olds, or, I don't know why they can't give us that information.
Okay, well, they do give you that information. You do have to go looking for it. If you go to the Ottawa Public Health COVID-19 dashboard, there are all kinds of data points there that you can look at. For example, healthcare institutions, ongoing outbreaks, 27. New outbreaks, 1. Childcare and schools, ongoing outbreaks, 11. New outbreaks, 1. In the community, 7 outbreaks. This would be congregate settings. 2 outbreaks. Open outbreaks in long-term care homes. They even list the long-term care homes where there are, they list them by name. There are 10 long-term care homes that have outbreaks, 3 retirement homes. So, they're all listed there. You just have to kind of go looking for them.
Well, that's great. I didn't realize that information was available. Yeah. It's too bad that the news doesn't report that. When they tell us at night there's 20 people in Ottawa in the hospital, and you're left wondering. But I don't think 20 people, I guess if you're one of them, that's bad, but sure. 20 people in the hospital in a city the size of Ottawa, 1 million people, is that considered a large number now?
Well, I guess that's in the eye of the beholder, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And there were, again, there were no deaths.
Right.
Yeah. But the thing is,
that's what we were striving for.
Sure. Yeah. The thing that they worry about, though, is exponential growth. You heard Dr. Doug Manuel talks about linear growth and exponential growth, that our vaccines are growing, having growth that's linear, but the vaccine is able to grow exponentially. Mm-hmm. And, maybe 100 doesn't sound so bad, but then 100 becomes 200, becomes 400, becomes 800, becomes 1,600, and soon you're into big numbers in a short period of time, right? A lot faster than vaccines can keep up.
Yeah.
Very clearly.
I think one of your earlier callers talked about a quasi-lockdown. You look at what Europe did last year, where one person could leave the house to go to get groceries. We did a quasi-lockdown here. You could still go to the grocery store. You could still go to Walmart. Yeah. You could still shop. I mean, they call it a lockdown, but was it?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that's my vote.
Still 11. You're still the 11th. Okay. All right.
Okay,
that's it,
Rob.
I think. Right, David? Yeah, that's it. That's all the time we have. Yeah, 11-1. And that one person said not only should it be a lockdown, it should be a severe lockdown. Nobody goes anywhere and everything's closed. You're on the losing side of the talkback hour today, I'm afraid. So coming up right after the 11 o'clock news. Yes, doctor. No, he's not a doctor. He's Geoffrey Johnston. He could be a doctor. The Doctor of International Affairs from the Kingston Whig-Standard coming right up after the 11 o'clock news. David Sali as well from the Ottawa Business Journal. And Michael Chong, Conservative Member of Parliament for Wellington-Halton Hills, Opposition Foreign Affairs Critic, and he is being sanctioned by the government of China. We'll ask him about that. All ahead, Rob Snow Show City News.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, March 29th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's minus 3 degrees. It does feel colder in the wind, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The province reporting another 2,094 cases of COVID-19, and those results come from almost 39,500 tests. 132 more of those cases, or 132 of them, are in Ottawa, 37 in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, 18 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 5 more cases of COVID-19 in Renfrew. The province is also reporting 10 more deaths. The move from yellow up into orange zone is just about guaranteed for Renfrew County now. The acting medical officer of health explains why to the Rob Snow Show.
Our numbers have been quite good. Unfortunately, I'm concerned right now. Our numbers are, I wouldn't even say inching up, they're almost surging up. And we now had 3 variants in Renfrew County and district since late last week.
Now, it's not all bad news. According to Dr. Robert Cushman, he says 75% of the above 80 group in that region has been vaccinated. That outpaces the provincial average. Cushman adds that starting today, anyone over the age of 75 can book their appointments for a COVID vaccine. City News Time, 11:02. Residents 70 years and older are able to book their COVID vaccine appointment in the city at Max vaccination clinics. But it appears, at least from calls we've received in our newsroom, that all available vaccine for that age group is spoken for today. For those 75 and older within Ottawa's 4 rural wards, pop-up centers are coming to provide easier access to the inoculation. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
According to Mayor Jim Watson, the rural pop-ups will take strain off other COVID-19 vaccination clinics in Ottawa. He tells the Rob Snow Show when and where the pop-ups will operate.
We're starting our rural pop-up clinics in Richmond and Osgood the 29th to the 31st, West Carleton and Cumberland the 1st to the 3rd of April, and Greeley and Navan the 4th to the 6th of April.
Watson adds appointments for the pop-ups must be made through Ottawa Public Health directly and not through the provincial booking system. The mayor is also confirming some Ottawa pharmacies will soon begin offering COVID-19 vaccinations, pending AstraZeneca supply. Alex Gouge, City News.
City News Time, 11:03, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Will start to clear and the wind will settle down. The high 5 degrees today. Tonight, mainly clear, minus 3, and tomorrow milder with a south wind, sun and cloud, and up to 16 degrees tomorrow. For today, the high 5.
And right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, minus 3 degrees. It does feel colder, though, in the wind. OPP has identified one victim at the center of a murder investigation at Hawkesbury and District Hospital. The victim is 89-year-old Albert Poidinger from Pointe Claire, Quebec. The doctor at the hospital facing one charge of first-degree murder, that is Brian Nadler, charged after a number of suspicious deaths, and that investigation is ongoing. The ship that blocked shipping traffic in Suez Canal in Egypt for days is now free. The canal service provider says workers successfully dislodged the container ship that had been stuck sideways in that crucial waterway. Gio Benitez tells us this morning the logjam has caused some hiccups in global trade.
The Suez Canal is a critical shortcut between Asia and Europe. Without it, ships would be forced to take a more expensive, more dangerous journey around Africa that could take 12 days or more. The financial losses here already colossal. About 10% of global trade passes through that canal, or about $10 billion every day.
It's not clear when traffic through the canal will return to normal. More than 350 vessels right now are piled up on either side, waiting to get through. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We'll get to Geoffrey Johnston in just a minute. Right now, the prosecutor prosecuting the ex-Minneapolis police officer accused of murder in the death of George Floyd is outlining the prosecution's case right now, and they are playing that notorious video of the knee on George Floyd's neck.
Y'all don't gotta put y'all right.
He is human, bro.
His nose is bleeding.
You can put him in the car. We tried that for 10 minutes. That's some bum ass shit, bro.
That's some bum ass shit, bro. Y'all know that. You don't gotta sit there with your knee on his neck, bro. Bro, he ain't crying, bro. You circling like in a jiu-jitsu move, bro. You trapped in his breathing right there, bro.
So that has started the prosecution outlining its case against Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer, in what is surely going to be one of the biggest criminal trials of the year. It's 11:06 now here on the Rob Snow Show on City News. As we welcome to the program Geoffrey Johnston, who is a columnist with the Kingston Whig-Standard, and he covers international affairs, and I'm sure you would agree with me. There's a lot of eyes on that trial.
Good morning, Rob. Yeah. I call this the American reckoning. This is a pivot, and it goes to the issue of racism in the criminal justice system, and I think all eyes in the United States are on that trial, and indeed around the world, because the murder of George Floyd, and let's call it what it is, that's what it was, it sparked Black Lives Matter protests across the world. So I think everybody's going to be watching this very closely.
Yeah. I must ask you, Michael Chong, by the way, is going to be on our program after the 11:30 news, the Conservative member of Parliament. He's also the foreign affairs critic for the Conservative Party, and he's the target of sanctions by the Chinese government. What do you think about that, Geoffrey?
I think Mr. Chong should wear that as a badge of honor. The communist regime that rules China is now sanctioning people in the West who have been speaking out against terrible human rights violations in China, including the genocide being perpetrated against Uyghur Muslims. And then, of course, there's the two Michaels. The Chinese regime has targeted the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, sanctioning two of their top officials. They've gone after an academic in the United Kingdom. The Canadian government has spoken out forcefully and said that the sanctioning of Mr. Chong and others is unacceptable. And I think all of this means that the multilateral approach is starting to put pressure on China, and China is reacting very badly. And I think this is actually a positive sign. The worst. Okay. I think the worst thing would have been if we had sanctioned China, because Canada, in concert with the United States and the United Kingdom last week, applied sanctions to China. And if China had just ignored it and shrugged, then that would have been a bad sign. The fact that they are reacting so badly to this means that they are feeling the pressure. And I'm hoping this will make some progress on the two Michaels, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. And I'm hoping that at some point in the very near future, China will announce their kangaroo sentence, because they put both the gentlemen on trial. They will inevitably be convicted, but I'm hoping that then China will just quietly release them, and we'll get our two Michaels back.
Okay. Steve Chase and Bob Fife report on the front page of the Globe and Mail this morning a story headline, Canadians can buy products made in China's Xinjiang region, which is where the Uyghurs, if they're not being detained, are certainly being, harassed and followed, although I think most of us would consider it's gone well beyond that now and into the realm of genocide, but it's a cotton-producing industry as well. And Steve Chase and Bob Fife report that it's fairly easy for Canadians to purchase things like bath towels and quilts and clothes through online retailers such as Amazon and eBay, and they're actually advertised with cotton from China's Xinjiang region, even though there's supposed to be, the federal government says there's supposed to be a ban on these kinds of products because they're made with forced labor. They might be made with forced labor. What do you think, Geoffrey?
Yes, I've written about this. Cotton is one of the big exports from that region, and it's actually really important to the Chinese economy. And some companies, such as H&M, have announced that they will not use that cotton, and the Chinese government has then turned around and sanctioned H&M, and they actually removed H&M from the internet in China. It's really hard to eliminate all the cotton made in that region by forced labor because the cotton ends up by being integrated into the global system. I really looked into this, but Canada and the Community of Nations should really clamp down on this. It's just like the issue of blood diamonds coming out of certain parts of Africa, which actually fuel conflict and mass rape. And so we need a really strong regime to look into the global supply chain and untangle the cotton made by forced labor and genocide, because this cotton literally is causing forced labor. All human rights experts will say this. Forced labor is integral to genocide. We saw this in Nazi Germany, where Jews were interned in death camps, had to work in these death camps, and they manufactured things for the Nazis. And so China should not be allowed to profit from genocide. So, yeah, we've got to double down on cotton in China.
Okay. Well, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about the 10th anniversary of the civil war in Syria, Geoffrey, and my gosh, it's hard to believe do you call it a war? Conflict? What do you call it, Geoffrey? Is it a...
it doesn't really matter what...
Doesn't matter? It's now into its 7th year now in Yemen.
Yeah.
In Yemen. You write about this in the Kingston Whig-Standard this week.
Yeah, last week was the 6th anniversary of it, and I wanted to talk to Save the Children because they're the largest independent non-governmental organization on the ground in Yemen, and the situation has never been worse in Yemen. You and I have talked about this a lot, and, I probably sound like a broken record, but the fact is this is the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. Parts of Yemen are actually now on the brink of famine as we speak right now. 50,000 people are literally on the verge of starving to death. There are 400,000 children who are very close to death because they are acutely malnourished. You have millions of children who are food insecure, which basically means they don't have enough to eat. The largest cause of violent death in Yemen for children is explosive devices, bombs and rockets. 51% of the health facilities are functioning at the most basic level, and that means that the rest of the hospitals and health clinics aren't working at all. Mothers who take their children in because these kids are starving to death or have been maimed are often turned away. And so if it were not for organizations such as Save the Children and UNICEF and others on the ground, the situation would be even worse. But the fact is, we can't turn away from this. And just because it's not on our TV screens every day doesn't mean we shouldn't be worried about it. Because, as I say, it should weigh on everybody's conscience if children are starving to death in Yemen. There was recently a donors conference, and it came up very short. The international community was trying to raise money, and they only got half the funds they needed for the Yemen campaign. So things are going to get worse, not better.
Okay. Thank you for your coverage of that situation.
It's a grim situation.
Yeah. And we'll speak to you next week.
Talk then, Rob.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
From the Kingston Whig-Standard, that's Geoffrey Johnston from the Ottawa Business Journal. David Sali is going to join us next. You won't believe one of the stories that David and his team at the OBJ have been covering. Floating tiki hut bars on the Ottawa River. Maybe the neatest thing I've seen in a long time, a tourism idea for Ottawa, floating tiki hut bars. We'll talk about it when we come back. Rob Snow Show, City News. Square knows that...
To opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, where I had to face it regards my employee, girls, ladies, what they work for me. I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew that we have to wait, and we knew that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song for my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what the grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian, so all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches, we focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked, I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that will bring all people around me. And all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Vedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box, and do it.
And City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
David Sali's with us from the Ottawa Business Journal. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Rob.
All right, I need to know about the tiki hut bars. Floating tiki hut bars. This is pretty much the neatest story I've ever seen for the city of Ottawa. I'm just trying to picture it now. he's floating these floating tiki hut bars going down the Ottawa River. But it's for real. It's for real. Ottawa Tiki Tours, it's called.
I had a feeling you might want to talk about this one, Rob.
Looks fun. Yeah, looks fun.
It's very interesting. This is our Caroline Phillips wrote about this last week, and not surprisingly, getting a lot of traction on social media. This story, that's correct. You heard correctly. Floating tiki hut bars. So they are, as Caroline says, they're going to be the biggest thing since La Machine had the fire-breathing dragons walking down the streets of the market. So it's this is the brainchild of a Rockland entrepreneur, Michael Karpishka, and his business partner, and they're launching. It's called Ottawa Tiki Tours. It's going to be starting this summer. It's a boat cruise company. They're going to take passengers on 90-minute rides on the Ottawa River from late May to October, and it is I wish right now radio was a visual medium. You could see these things floating out there. I mean, they look like a tiki bar you would see on a South Pacific island or something like that, but they float. They basically I believe they have bathrooms on board as well, and they are allowed to customers can get alcohol as well as non-alcoholic drinks. Bring their own food if you want, since there's a limited selection of snacks, they say. So, if you want to eat, you're going to have to bring your own, but that's okay. And you can, and each one of these vessels can accommodate up to 12 passengers. They're kind of octagon shaped. They're pontoon boats, 18 feet in diameter. And they have a 40 horsepower motor on there. So, you motor up and down the river, sit there, and you can feel like you're in the.
You know what?
Pacific.
It's so mad. It's genius. It's genius. I'm telling you. And apparently, I guess since the word got out, they're booming. I mean, the phone is ringing off the hook, or however they're taking their bookings. I mean, they can't make them fast enough, and it looks like they'll be sold out, right?
Well, exactly. They're already, as you say. I mean, people can't wait to get out there and try these things. So and they hope to get it going by the Victoria Day long weekend. So, and they're saying they've got two right now, two vessels. They might add another one, depending on how popular it is. And the way things are going, it looks like they might have to add another one. So,
Oh my gosh. Karpishka.
There we go. Is
Yeah.
that Dave working?
That's David doing the magic. Yeah. All right. Okay. So he first got the idea, it says 2019, after checking out a similar operation in the United States, beginning with Lake George, popular Adirondack mountain vacation destination in upstate New York. I was fascinated right away. I bet.
Yep.
What a great fit.
Absolutely.
Boy, oh boy. Tiki Tours. Ottawa Tiki Tours.
Tiki Tours.
You heard it here.
Yep.
You heard it here. You read it in the Ottawa Business Journal.
And Rob, I want to hear a full report when you take that. That Tiki tour.
Man. You know what? I have some holidays coming. If I can get in, save me a booking. I may have to. I wonder how much it is. I wonder how much it is for the day. Any idea? Did you find out how much it is?
I don't know.
No?
Offhand,
Okay.
to be honest with you, Rob. No.
I'm trying to think what I would pay for something like that. I wonder what it is. 90 minutes. You say it's 90 minutes, right? 90 minutes.
Yeah,
okay.
90 minutes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. But if you're going with 12 people, 12 people, right? Make it a big party?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're allowed to have 12 people on your floating tiki hut by then, we'll see. Maybe the Ford government will have to come up with a whole new set of restrictions just for floating tiki huts by then. So who knows? All right, that's very cool. Yeah, that's very cool. Now, from there to this is very interesting because it kind of all ties in. People are looking for stuff to do, and one of the things that people are looking to do is go for a bike ride, and that's been very good for Kuhnstad Sports, right? They sell a lot of bicycles there.
Absolutely.
High-end bicycles, right?
Yes, that's it, exactly. And they're certainly not the only bike shop in town that's booming these days. Every shop. Just try and call up a bike shop, your neighborhood store, and ask them when you can get a bicycle, because it's not, it could be months. It's right now, bike stores are selling out as fast as they get stock in. It's a great way to stay socially distanced while you're getting exercise in the outdoors, which is exactly what everybody's recommending these days. So all over town, bikes are flying out of the stores, so to speak. And whether it's Kuhnstad Sports or we talked to Joe Mama Cycles, and they said it's been really going since last year. I mean, it started at the beginning of the pandemic, and some of it was, as the owner of Joe Mama Cycles told us, he kind of called it the toilet paper effect, where people heard there were no bikes, so everybody started panic buying bikes. So now there really is a shortage, and it's the same if you're trying to get your bike fixed. good luck. You better call early and often, because it's all the bike repair stores and there's a lot of mobile bike repair shops as well. They say they're just run off their feet right now. They can't keep up because everybody's looking to get out there, hit the trails, get ready for spring, and so it is a booming business right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting in reading that story that, for example, if you need a part, you might be out of luck, right? It might be stuck on a ship in the Suez Canal, for example. So you just never know.
Exactly.
It's incredible. It's such a weird economy. There was a story, I'm not sure who had the story, if it was Post Media or you guys. Somebody had the story, swimming pool. Like, if you want to get a swimming pool installed, you just forget about it this season. Oh, CBC had that story. Yeah, okay.
CBC had that. Yeah. That's right. I think Kate Porter had that after, and it kind of came out of the last planning committee meeting where they mentioned that the number of permits apparently for swimming pools has just skyrocketed last year for new pools. So anybody looking to put in an underground pool in your backyard, well, you better call now if you want one this summer. That's for sure.
Yeah,
so
we've done lots of stories like that.
Just everybody's looking to.
Yeah. Bicycle, swimming pools. Bombardier has spun out its recreational products division into BRP. ATVs and snowmobiles and all that stuff. All that stuff is just flying off the dealer lots. We had Pirate Cove Marina was on our show. Gosh, that has to be a month or two now. Can't keep boats in stock, and boating season is coming up. It's just insane. The whole outdoor recreation economy is going crazy right now, and I think that's going to be pretty good for the floating tiki hut bar business. On the Ottawa River. You know what? Good for them. Holy cow. What a talk about seizing on an opportunity. I hope they have a good long season. They hope to start in late May and run all the way through to October. So, we'll see how it goes. David, great to hear from you this week. Thank you so much.
You too, Rob.
Yep.
Thanks.
From the Ottawa Business Journal on kind of the outdoor recreation economy. That's David Sali. Michael Chong, sanctioned by the Chinese government. Michael Chong, the Conservative Member of Parliament and the Foreign Affairs Critic, comes up next on City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, the 29th of March. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buchan. Right now in Ottawa, gorgeous sunshine, but chilly. -2 in Smiths Falls, sunny and -2, a little breezy as well. Here's what's making news right now. Provincial health officials reporting 132 new cases of COVID-19 in Ottawa. Out of 2,094 new cases across Ontario, there were 10 new deaths in Ontario due to the virus. Today's figures out of over 39,000 tests. The province reports 521 suspected variant cases of COVID-19 in Ottawa, those to be confirmed by further testing. Elsewhere, there are 37 new cases of COVID-19 in Eastern Ontario, 40 new cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. 4 are from the past 24 hours. There are 5 new cases in Renfrew County. Police say an 89-year-old Pointe Claire, Quebec man is the alleged murder victim in a case involving a doctor charged with first-degree murder at Hawkesbury Hospital. 35-year-old Dr. Brian Nadler was taken into custody last week. OPP say Albert Poindinger died last Thursday at the Hawkesbury and District General Hospital. Police are looking into other recent suspicious deaths at that location, but have not said how many deaths are part of the investigation. Prince Edward Island has suspended use of the Oxford Astrazeneca vaccine for those aged 18 to 29 who had appointments for the shots in pharmacies. Health officials in that province said in a brief statement, the appointments are on hold pending further information expected today from Health Canada and the National Advisory Committee on Immunization. I'm Sarah Buchan. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
On Saturday, government of China announced sanctions on individuals, entities in Canada and the United States in response to sanctions imposed on Chinese citizens and groups over the conditions in Xinjiang. And among the Canadians sanctioned by the Chinese government is a Conservative member of Parliament and the party's foreign affairs critic, the official opposition's foreign affairs critic, Michael Chong, joins me this morning here on City News. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Great to be here.
How does that feel? You've been sanctioned by China.
Well, I see it as a badge of honor because it's clear that the Chinese authorities are worried. It's clear that our efforts to draw attention to their violations of human rights and international law are effective. And so I'll wear this sanction as a badge of honor.
Okay. What does it mean for you personally?
In practical terms, not much. It means that I'm prohibited. I and the other elected officials sanctioned are prohibited from traveling to China. It also means that Chinese companies and Chinese citizens are prohibited from doing business with us. So, you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I had no plans to travel outside the country for the foreseeable future. And, you know, as an elected member of Parliament, I don't do business with China. My responsibility is to represent the people in my riding in Ottawa.
Right. You are an opposition member of Parliament, you're not from the government side. What do you make of that, the fact that you're not part of the Trudeau Liberal government? Do you read anything into that at all, Mr. Chong?
Well, I read two things into it. I think that by targeting me, it's clear that we as an opposition are being effective in our foreign policy. I think we're being effective in holding the government accountable for its foreign policy on China. I think the second thing I read into it is that the Chinese authorities took a pass on sanctioning members of the Liberal cabinet because they abstained from recognizing the Uyghur genocide. American government officials were sanctioned as part of the sanctions placed on me because the U.S. has taken the step to officially recognize the Uyghur genocide. But they took a pass on sanctioning Liberal ministers, I think, because they abstained from the Uyghur genocide vote.
Okay. And even after that abstention from that vote, do you think that remains one of the major dividing lines between how Liberals view the current situation and how the Conservative Party views the current situation in China, sir?
I think it's one of several dividing lines.
One of several? Okay.
Yeah, one of several. We've long been calling on the government to take a much stronger line on China because we long ago recognized the threat that China was posing to our citizens, to our companies, and to our values. It's clear the government has changed its position on China. It's now acknowledging the threat where it once did not, but they've yet to take some actions that we've been calling on them long to do. So, for example, we've been calling on them to ban Huawei from Canada's telecommunications network because of the threat it presents to our national security and to our intellectual property here in Canada. We've been calling on them to ban imports of cotton and tomatoes from Xinjiang province in China because there's evidence that the Uyghur Muslim minority is being forced through slave-like conditions to pick this cotton and to produce these tomatoes. So we're also calling on them to withdraw from the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which is a government initiative of China's to expand its influence throughout the Indo-Pacific region. So those are three things we're calling on the government to do that they have yet to do. We think it's important that they use all the tools in their toolkit to defend our interests and defend our values.
Yeah. If I could just maybe work a little bit in reverse on a few of those things. We're supposed to have the Canada Infrastructure Bank here in this country, a brainchild of this government. Not much has been accomplished there. It's failed to secure any private sector investment, as a matter of fact. And it hasn't really made too many investments, and they've all been all government investments. What is the Asian Infrastructure Bank? How much is the government of Canada putting into the Asian Infrastructure Bank, and to what end? What's in it for us to be putting money in the Asian Infrastructure Bank, Mr. Chong? What's supposed to be the goal here?
Well, it's a great question, Rob. These infrastructure banks are not like your regular banks that we all know and use every day. These banks are public institutions, the most famous of which is the World Bank, which was established after World War II to help developing countries access loans to build out their infrastructure, money that they would not normally have been able to access on markets. So these public institutions, these public banks were set up by governments in order to help developing countries build out infrastructure like ports and rail systems and highways and the like. So there are a number of these public type infrastructure banks around the world that have been around for decades.
Oh, I think we've lost Mr. Chong.
Started version of this bank. It's called the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank.
Okay.
It's a bank led by China in order to expand its influence throughout the Indo-Pacific region. And so they've asked countries to join this bank. And the reason why countries like Canada joined this bank was because they believed it would help influence. It would help Canada spread its benevolent influence throughout the Indo-Pacific region. The reality is that all we're doing is being complicit in helping spread China's malevolent, authoritarian system of governance throughout the region, and that's the reason why we think the government should withdraw from the bank.
I mean, I thought one of the aims of this infrastructure bank was, if the Canadian government, say, puts some money into this bank, I believe our commitment is $40 million US.
Our commitment is in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay.
But we recently transferred, as part of that commitment, $40 million to the bank. And our argument was we should have suspended that payment, particularly in the light of the trials taking place, the secret trials of Mr. Kovrig and Mr. Snowbird.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So our argument is we should immediately suspend all payments to this bank and announce our withdrawal from it.
Right. I was under the impression that the goal of the government was, if we become part of this bank, it may be beneficial to Canadian businesses who hope to work on infrastructure projects. Whether that's
that
SNC Lavalin or maybe some of our or other private financial institutions or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, that certainly is another argument that the government put forward. The reality is,
you don't want anything to do with it, right?
No, the reality is we're not helping spread democracy, human rights, and the rule of law throughout the region through this bank. We're just being complicit in helping China spread its malevolent influence throughout the region. And so we should wake up and realize what this is all about and withdraw from the bank.
Okay. Are we also being, using your word, complicit in not really going after and banning products that may be made with forced labor in the Xinjiang region? You mentioned cotton, for example. It's the topic of a front page story in the Globe and Mail that very easy to find and have shipped to Canada. Very easy to buy online, Amazon, eBay, advertised. Cotton made in Xinjiang. What do you think? Should it be that easy to buy that stuff in Canada?
No, it should be banned. It should be banned today. We should not be importing any products that are being made with forced labor or slave labor. We've been calling on the government to do this for some time. Now, to be fair to them, they introduced measures to try to stop the import of these products. They announced these measures 2 months ago in January. Unfortunately, they're not effective. The measures put the onus on importers to collect the information and make a determination that no forced labor has been used in the production of these imports. The problem is many Canadian importers are small to medium-sized businesses who simply don't have the resources to collect that information or to make that determination. So we're asking the government to introduce new measures, more effective measures that would be structured in the reverse way in which the January measures were structured. In other words, put a ban on all cotton and tomato imports from China and allow companies to apply for an exemption if they can prove that these products were produced without this forced labor. We think the government could do that immediately, and we're calling on them to do exactly that.
Recently, our government joined the United States, the United Kingdom, and the EU in imposing sanctions on 4 Chinese officials suspected of being responsible for the persecution of the Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in Xinjiang. Do you think that is evidence that the current government is coming around to the threat that you've long warned about in the Conservative Party?
Yes, I think it's a good first step. I think they're slowly coming around, but they need to do much more.
Okay.
We talked about tomatoes, banning tomatoes and cotton. We've talked about the withdrawing from the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. The other thing they need to do is they need to make a decision on Huawei and ban it from the core of our 5G network. They should have done that long ago. These are a number of things they can take immediate action on that would help put further pressure on China to uphold international law to stop these violations of human rights.
It just seems that when it comes to Huawei and telecom, it seems as though they waited for the private sector to move first, for the big telcos to say we're not going to use that gear. Because Bell and Rogers and TELUS have all said that. We're not going to use that gear anymore.
Well, they created policy confusion for Canada's telecommunications companies. In fact, it was just over a year ago that TELUS announced it was going to be using Huawei for the build-out of its network. There are reports that it installed Huawei telecommunications gear in the National Capital Region in Ottawa, which is home to Canada's headquarters to Canada's military, its security establishment, and the Government of Canada. And so subsequent to that, TELUS reversed that decision and announced it would no longer be using that equipment. So this indecision on part of the federal government is creating policy confusion and creating problems for our own telecommunications companies. The government long ago should have made a decision to ban Huawei.
Shouldn't have waited and should have just basically told the telcos you can't use that gear.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the government often
which our allies did, right, Mr. Chong?
That's exactly right, Rob. The government often says that it likes to work multilaterally, but often when given the chance, it doesn't do so. As you pointed out, 4 of our 5 allies have already taken decisions to ban or restrict Huawei from their telecommunications networks. Those being the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. Canada is alone, unilaterally alone, in not having made a decision on Huawei.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Chong, let me ask you, I mean, you've now been sanctioned by China. Have you ever felt intimidated by them? Has the government ever intimidated you in any way? Or
I've never felt.
For example, we know that expats living in China, Canadian citizens of Chinese heritage, a lot of them have faced intimidation for speaking out against that regime. Has anything ever happened like that to you?
Look, I've got a thick skin, so I've been a member of Parliament now for 16 years, and you learn to take the slings and the arrows. And so I've never any threats or intimidation I've received has never deterred me from doing my work, which is, to stand up and speak up on various issues. That said, I've witnessed intimidation. I've witnessed, intimidation campaigns and influence campaigns on part of foreign governments. And if one was a private citizen, not in elected office, it is intimidating, which is the reason why we're also calling on the government to introduce a robust plan to counter China's intimidation and threats that are taking place here on Canadian soil against Canadian citizens, particularly Canadians in the Chinese community.
Okay. Thank you, Michael Chong, for your work on that file, sir. Greatly appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. From Wellington-Halton Hills, Conservative Member of Parliament and the Foreign Affairs Critic for the official opposition, that's Michael Chong. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about this incredible NCAA hockey game that went to 5 overtime periods. It wasn't meant to be for the University of North Dakota, which has kind of become this unofficial farm team for the Ottawa Senators. But big implications for the Ottawa Senators, and Ken Warren writing about it for Post Media this morning. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
I wanted to give gifts to my volunteers, so I started making, I knew this is a skill I had, so I made a chocolate that had cultural based with a teaching, because culture here is not just a little part, it's the large part, it's the fundamental part of our organization. So then we started doing, just little programs, and we sell a few at a fair. And then we started getting contracts. People were starting to enjoy the chocolates, and started getting more and more contracts all across Canada. Then we decided to become a social enterprise, and we were able to create 2 jobs. And Val is one of our chocolatiers, very talented. We were able to help her with employment.
We started just with a little bit in the kitchen, doing a little bit of chocolate together, and next thing it's just kind of taken off. And it's great because I love to be creative, and we get to create a lot and make up stuff, and it's just I just love it. It's just great that we get to make money back for Wabano, and it's helping me out, and we're helping just everybody out, Wabano and everything.
We met a very socially conscious business owner being around town, and we decided to partner, because beans and chocolate are sort of created the same way, and there's and they're very one origin bean, so it was a good pairing together. And it's been a fantastic partnership for both of us.
I was fortunate enough to get introduced to Purat, the head of Wabano Fine Chocolates, through a local networking group. And I was completely intrigued by the social enterprise that she was running, and then I looked at what we were doing, trying to support local business and supporting local communities, and it was a perfect match, and it's been fantastic ever since.
We make every batch by hand. We temper it by hand to get to the consistency it needs to be to make a good chocolate. And one of the best, also wonderful things we did, we've connected with Ed, with being around town, and our coffee bars have been amazing hit. So we're really excited about the connection with our coffee.
Let's talk some Ottawa Senators hockey by talking about some NCAA hockey with Ken Warren, who is the senior hockey writer for Post Media and joins me this morning. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning.
Yeah,
how are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
Absolutely wonderful. It's below zero, but other than that.
Yeah. I haven't been outside since about 6:30 in the morning. As long as the wind has died down, the wind was just crazy overnight. But now listen, if I'm a Senators fan, why are so many Senators fans following the University of North Dakota? Why is that important?
Isn't it funny? You know, on a Saturday night, you had, I don't know how many, but judging by social media, it could be billions of Senators fans finding on their apps an NCAA game being played in Fargo, North Dakota, because three of the team's super prospects are playing the same. Well, actually four play on the team, but three of them have really big decisions right now on whether to come out of college and step directly into the pro ranks. And, you know, it's a really intriguing situation because it's hard to know what the jump is like. Some players it's easy, some players it's not. There is a potential for a couple of them anyway, maybe, perhaps to step directly right into an NHL lineup.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm going to get into it, but because they're at different stages in their NCAA careers. But it's like it's almost like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like an influx that can come right at once. And it's rare for three from the same program, of course, to be in that situation. But it's an interesting time for the Senators because it does spark some excitement about the future.
So they are Shane Pinto, Jacob Bernard Docker, and Jake Sanderson. Who should we go with first? Maybe talk a little bit.
Well, I would start probably with Jacob Bernard Docker. Okay. And he's played 3 years at North Dakota. And if Canadian hockey fans might remember, a couple of years ago, he had a really good tournament for Canada at the World Juniors. Not an offensive kind of star defenseman, very solid in his own end, makes a smart play, that kind of thing, and physical enough kind of player. And he's played 3 years. He was an alternate captain there last year. He was in this position last year, but because of COVID, the NCAA tournament didn't happen. So I think part of his reasoning for not coming out was saying, hey, I want to, one more crack at the NCAA and see if we can win it all for North Dakota. And of course, that didn't happen. There was a big upset on Saturday, and they lost before even making it to the what they call the Frozen Four. And so this decision has come a little bit quicker than many had thought. So I would think he could come out. I don't want to speak for any of these guys. There's all sorts of different things that go into it. But one of the factors is there a spot on a big league roster potentially immediately? And I think there is.
Well, for the Senators on a team that struggles defensively, specifically defensively.
Well, and specifically right now on the bottom end of the defense chart, you have DJ Smith, the coach, is rolling 4 defensemen and not using a third pair of defensemen very often. So if you throw in a young guy and maybe makes some mistakes or whatever, but you give him a chance to play in that position, there is an opportunity. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I'm sure that's one of the factors he's weighing in his mind right now to say, geez, guy, possibly they have to wait a week after it's like the new quarantine rules. But it is possible that he could get in 10 games before the end of the season.
And Jake Sanderson is also a defenseman, isn't he?
Yeah, younger. They only just picked him in the last drafts in October. Right. 5th overall, 2 selections behind Tim Stützle, and
he's getting rave reviews, though, right, Ken? Rave reviews, yeah.
He is, and again, it's a tricky one. An 18-year-old played 1 year of college hockey, and it's been done before. I mean, Brady Tkachuk played 1 year of college hockey and stepped right into the NHL. Now, the one comparison I've heard is, and this is a huge comparison. Colorado has a guy named Cale Makar, who a lot of fans know is a superstar already. He played 2 years of college before coming out, and after 1 year, everybody said he could have come out and played, but he chose to take another year just to fine tune his game a little bit. And when he came into the NHL and directly into the NHL playoffs, actually, he was a standout for Colorado. So that's the one comparison to look at. I don't know, what he's weighing, but again, maybe the fact that there could be an opportunity here right away, maybe that rushes his decision a little bit. So that's intriguing. I don't know what he's going to do. I would think if one of the three is going to stay another year, it would be Sanderson.
What about Shane Pinto?
And Shane Pinto had an outstanding year. He's a center who scores a lot, but is also, a lot of college guys come out and their defensive game isn't quite as established as the offensive side of the game. But he's really been what, and I'm saying this from a distance too. I've seen limited action. This is just from talking to the coach, Brad Berry, and from talking to Senator scouts in the organization. People that he's got a defensive awareness. He wins face-offs. He does those sort of, what people like to say, the little things in hockey that make a difference. He's already got a sense of what to do. And if he comes in, I don't know if he steps directly into the NHL, but he's probably not that far away. Maybe he goes to the AHL and with Belleville for a little bit. But I would think he comes out. The one reason is he was a finalist for Hobey Baker, or is a finalist. They haven't picked it yet, which is the top NCAA player. So what more can you accomplish at that level? I think that weighs into a decision on whether you stay in college or come up.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for explaining why North Dakota hockey is so important to Ottawa Senators hockey and why so many people actually stayed up to watch, well, I guess altogether 8 periods of hockey.
Yeah, they have been nicknamed the North Dakota Senators this year, so that's the reason.
All right. Sens back in action, I guess, on Thursday, right? Because of all the Habs and their COVID.
The COVID and the rejuggling of the schedule. Yeah, Thursday against Montreal.
Thank you, Ken Warren. Great to hear from you, sir. Appreciate the time.
Have a great day.
Senior hockey writer for Post Media. That's it for the Rob Snow Show, the noon news, and then the Mark Sutcliffe